frame?
Dude, you look perfect. In fact, I might use your picture on everybody else's interview.
Hilarious.
All right. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. Today, we're going to show some love to the rhythm section. We got the one and only Bob Glaub with us. If you are a baby boomer, you have heard Bob many, many, many times. He's had a fabulous session and touring career. He's a lovely guy. A couple of quick announcements. I want to thank our mutual friend, Val McCallum. Val, thank you very much for connecting us. We appreciate it. Also, make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe to subscribe to the show. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and that little emoji that looks like a bell. That helps YouTube recommend us. And thank you for your support. Let me give you a quick rundown. Listen, it's really hard to give you Bob's background. I would be here like 4 hours reading like half the names he's played with, but he's originally from New York City. He's been a first call session and touring bass player in LA for over 45 years. He's played or toured with artists and bands, including Journey, the Doobie Brothers, John Fogerty, Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, Neil Diamond, Ringo Starr. That's not some pretty good names, right? Only legends. Jackson Browne, who he's currently touring with, Warren Zevon, Donna Summer, John Lennon, Rod Stewart, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, Linda Rondstat, who he toured with as well for almost 20 years, Carly Simon, Gladys Knight, Bonnie Raitt, Cher, Stevie Nicks, the Bee Gees, Jimmy Buffett, Steve Perry, Donovan, Dan Fogelberg, Patti Smith, all the members of the Eagles pretty much, Aaron Neville, Bon Jovi, Dwight Yoakam, Bob Seger, Leonard Cohen, Tracy Chapman, Adam Sandler, and literally hundreds and hundreds of other artists, man. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to talking to you for a while now.
Well, me too.
Thank you.
It's funny hearing all those names in a row.
Is it?
I don't go back and, really.
This was nothing. I mean,
add them up, but I've been really fortunate to, be able to play with a wide variety of people.
I'm sure. Let's start with this. Let's start back. You started playing bass in junior high because your buddies had a band without a bass player. So you asked them if you could join the band if you got a bass, and that's how this all started. But I was curious, when did you realize that you wanted to play music as a career, and how did that decision evolve?
As a career, well, I think it really started. I loved playing from the moment I started playing, and I loved music, since I was 5 or 6. But to really have a moment, I think I had an epiphany when I was about 19. I had been playing in bands, that band that you just mentioned in junior high, which is middle school now, they call that. And then in high school, I met became friends with another group of guys and had another little rock and roll cover band. And so I graduated high school and started, I got some jobs. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't graduate from high school, go straight to college. I really wanted to play music, but there were no opportunities. Our little high school cover band broke up for whatever reason. And I didn't really land in another opportunity right away to play with other people.
And this was in LA?
Yeah, this was in LA. Yeah, you'd mentioned I was born in New York, but we moved to LA when I was 18 months old or so.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm an LA native.
Yeah, all right.
Grew up here. And most of that since I was 4 years old on the west side of LA, kind of next community over from Venice, world famous Venice Beach.
Right on.
So anyway, I went to junior college for a semester, and then a buddy of mine and I hitchhiked around Europe in 1971.
Oh my God, that's so much fun.
Oh yeah, so glad I did that. It was an amazing experience. Neither one of us were doing anything. We got a gig at a gas station for about, 4 or 5 months or something, and worked full time at a gas station pumping gas when gas was 29 cents a gallon.
And
I'm showing my age.
Well, this was where, in what country?
Oh, we got the job in LA to save money to go to Europe.
Oh my God.
To save like $600, which would last 3 months.
Isn't it amazing that you could work in a gas station at one point in time and save money to go to England or Europe with that.
Oh yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
hard to
It
believe.
was a great experience, you know, pumping gas, meeting people. And, you know, every time somebody came in, you had to wash the windows and check the oil and full service, you know.
Yeah, that's old school, man.
Totally old school. So we saved the money up. Anyway, hitchhiked around Europe, you know, had a million great experiences. And then my buddy went home. I didn't really want to go home yet. So I stayed an extra 4 months. I was gone over 7 months. And I went to Israel. I went to Israel to meet my mom's. I just had to put a thought in my head. I'm going to go to Israel without contacting, you know, there's no cell phones, 1971. And I didn't even know them, but I got my mom's brother and sister's address.
That's wild.
Who had gone to Israel after World War II and settled there. And I landed on one of my aunt's doorstep, and I spent 3 months there. So while I was there, I, you know, met all my family. One night I was watching TV in probably like, I don't know, October, November, 71. I think it was October. Yeah, right around then, fall, because I came home in December, close to Christmas. I saw the concert for Bangladesh on television.
Right.
And I'd already been, you know, a record buyer, you know, and reading out, you know, all through school since I was 5 years old, to backtrack, because I always shared a bedroom with my older brother.
Right.
And so he's almost 4.5 years older. So when he's 10, you know, I'm 5.5, whatever. So I'm getting turned on to a lot of music just by the radio in the house, which was always on.
Yeah.
And then we started buying records together. And since we shared a bedroom, you know, I was always listening to the same music. So the concert for Bangladesh is kind of, I'm going around in a circle.
Okay.
When I was in high school, I used to go see at a well-known, the blues club in LA, the Ash Grove, where all the blues artists played, you know, anyone who is anyone in blues from wherever, and folk played the Ash Grove. Well, Taj Mahal with his first band played there all the time. They were kind of, I won't say they were a house band, but they were LA based at the time and played there a lot. So I saw Jesse Ed Davis, great guitar player, you know, and I'd already followed his career, you know, from high school on, seeing that all these records he's playing on, you know, was when we started reading album credits. You know?
Yeah.
And so I was a big fan of his playing. He was so unique. So then cut to that time in Israel, seeing the concert for Bangladesh. There he is standing, you know, the way he stood, you know, very, very erect and very kind of regal looking, the way he looked on when he was playing. And I went, I just had an epiphany. I just kind of went, after seeing the whole concert, I went, you know, it was George Harrison with Leon Russell with all these sidemen, mostly, besides Ringo and Keltner, mostly Oklahoma guys. But anyway, I just went, I want to do that, you know, which meant kind of like be a sideman, play music with great artists, you know, who had great songs. What that entailed, I don't know, but a light went off and I went, I want to do that, which maybe made me go home. I could have ended up being in Israel, you know, living on a kibbutz or something. And
that's
wild.
wild.
A girl, you know what I mean? It gave me kind of a reason to go home, because I kind of went, because I hadn't been playing. I traveled with an acoustic guitar at that time. I had an acoustic guitar with me. I was just learning how to, you know, play first position chords, and took it with me. And it was kind of a lot to schlep around a big acoustic guitar.
Around, all around Europe and
hitchhiking and on trains and whatever. But I had that with me, but I didn't touch a bass for like, you know, 8 months or so. So it gave me a little bit of an incentive just by saying that to self, you know, that's what I want to do.
Isn't that wild how that happened?
Yeah, it is just wild, kind of. I kind of remember it really distinctively, though, a light bulb going off and just going, man, I want to do that. It was so great. You know, the band was so great, but, you know, I knew kind of what that entailed, you know, just a bunch of guys rehearsing and doing a gig. Because I'd already played a lot of gigs.
Who played bass in that?
Well, Carl Raitt and Klaus Bormann.
Okay, yeah, I remember.
Klaus played on some. I think Klaus played on more than Carl did. But Carl, I think, was featured on some songs, but mostly Klaus, I think. I might be wrong about that. I think could have been just Klaus. I might have to look it up while we're talking. See if my memory serves me well. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
50 years ago.
71. Yeah. 50 years, a long time.
Yeah. Anyway, so I go home. I go to New York on the way home from Israel and for a couple of weeks. And then I went while I was there. I stayed with a cousin and I went out one night on my own, took a train downtown to see Edgar Winter's White Trash.
Ah, what a band.
And that also just exploded my head. They were unbelievably great, you know, powerhouse band. Every person in the band was amazing. And they just, man, my head was blown away. And I'm like, yeah, I got to do that. That's
Remember where that show was?
Yeah, it was at the Academy of Music.
Okay.
Yeah, I forget what street it was on. It's.
I don't think that's around anymore.
No, it hasn't been around for many years. So then I go home and it's like kind of nothing, you know. It's like go home. I moved back with my parents. You know, I hadn't really started my own life because I was going to be gone for the better part of a year. You know, so go home at my parents and what am I? You know, it's kind of like what am I going to do now? And while I was gone, like 5 of my closest friends moved into this house on the beach. Well, like a house behind the beach over the next community south of Venice, right south of the Venice Pier, which is called the Marina Peninsula. They're all musicians and their girlfriends. And, you know, it was kind of the crash pad. It was the party house, you know, so I spent way more time there. I have very little recollection of being at my parents during that like 6-month period or something. And I was there all the time because all my best buddies lived there. And they made the little 1-car garage into a music jam room. Right behind them, like the next street over, but there was an alley between them, lived Jesse Ed Davis.
Oh, wow.
So
this is like nuts.
Serendipitous, like serendipitous beyond, you know, next level. So I was there and he started listening, I think, from outside. I don't know how he made his introduction. Maybe he knocked and came in, but he started, you know, he could hear him probably from his house.
Yeah, sure.
Because it was not that soundproof. There were egg cartons on the wall.
Old poor man's baffles, right?
Yeah, old school. Anyway, and so he befriended all of us. And I think and I didn't live there, but I just happened to be there one night when he was there and got introduced to him. And somehow he hit it off. He befriended all of us. But I somehow glommed onto him like white on rice. You know, I I was such a fan. And I just took the opportunity because he invited me. He said, hey, come over anytime and hang out. So guess what?
You did.
I did. I would just knock on his door, you know, on the way to going to hang out with my friends or on the way to the beach. Like, yeah, here I am. I just knock on the door. And he was always so sweet and welcoming. And we hung out for hours and hours on end in his home, you know, playing blues records. And I was, you know, I got to watch him like this close, you know, watch what his hands were doing while he was playing guitar. And I don't think I ever brought a bass over.
I was going to ask you that.
Nah. I don't think he had a bass there, but he had some guitars in his living room on stands. He had an upright piano. And he was good, really good on piano too. Really great funky feel. And so we just hung out a lot for probably like, I don't know, a half a year or so. And right around that time.
At the time?
He wasn't really, he had been doing some gigs. I had seen him play, you know, at the Ash Grove was one of them with his own band, with a great band. But not any of the guys from the other couple guys from the original Taj Mahal band. But he wasn't gigging. He was doing a lot of session work. Okay. He was a really in-demand LA session player. So I knew that about him. And that was part of the thing when I was in Israel, say, well, I want to do that.
Yeah.
You know? And seeing Jim Keltner, who I was already a huge fan of because I had seen Mad Dogs and Englishmen live at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. And super exciting. And, you know, it's another thing that made me go, well, I want to do that. Whatever that is,
Yeah.
I don't know what that entails, but it was pretty naive, actually. But so cut to about after I met Jesse and we were hanging, I'd say we spent a lot of time hanging out and having meals. And he was just like, I would say he was kind of a mentor, you know.
Yeah.
We would go to other people's gigs, you know, I would drive them, you know, be the designated driver.
Sure.
And 6 months later, I would say in the fall of 72, he got a deal. He had 2 solo albums out on Atlantic, or Atco maybe, which is Atlantic.
Atlantic, yeah.
Yeah, and I knew those albums really well. My buddies and I, who were in the house behind him, knew all the songs. We could jam on them, you know. And so he got a record deal with Epic Records to do a solo album, and he told me about it. He said, oh yeah, I'm going in the studio with blah, 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 and you know, Keltner, and then named all these other people. I went, cool, great, that's going to be great. So one night, the first night of the recording, I think was around November or so of 72 or October. It was in the fall, I think. And I'm still at my parents' house. I haven't moved out yet. I couldn't get my
Were you
shit
working
together.
or you just?
I think at that point I got a part-time job at I was a sign maker.
Wow, your parents were pretty cool.
Oh yeah, my parents were really supportive, and my dad was a blue collar, you know, my dad was a cabinet maker.
Okay.
And they were they were supportive. They didn't know what to make of it. They weren't giving me any like guidance, like you should go to music school or go to the Berklee School of Music, or there was none of that, or you should go to UCLA and study music. It was just like, I was kind of always, even as a little preteen, you know, on my bicycle, getting out of the house, very independent. And in high school, hitchhiking around California and hitchhiking to gigs like the blues club I mentioned at age 14, 15 by myself, because sometimes I couldn't get anyone interested. Like Albert King, never heard of him. You know, like,
oh my God.
You know, I went to see him at a club.
Yeah.
You know, so I was pretty independent, even though I was living with my parents. But,
sure.
Yeah, maybe they just kind of let me do my thing. You know, they didn't go, oh, you got to go to college and get a career. My dad always said later on, even after I started working, well, you got to get a fallback plan. This isn't going to last forever.
Right, right. Which is not uncommon.
No, and it was very good advice. But, you know, somehow I've made it being a one-trick pony, you know. But
your parents from here, or were they from?
No, my parents are European. I'm the first American born in the family.
Okay, so they probably
they're Holocaust survivors. They were.
Oh my God!
They're from Slovakia, Czech.
Holy
Slovakia
shit.
Side of Czechoslovakia, but they spoke Hungarian at home. So my friends always thought of them as Hungarians, but they're not real Hungarians because they're not from Hungary. But my mother was in, you know, death camps, and my dad was like in forced labor camps.
That's a miracle, man.
It is a complete miracle, yeah. So they came here. They're the true pioneers, you know.
Yeah, but
you know,
so they were probably overwhelmed with just like, how does all this work? I mean, from coming from that environment, now they're in LA, and they're probably like, I'm sure they just thought it was normal for you to be running around there. I couldn't imagine.
Well, they just kind of, I think, you know, like let's say by 1960, I'm 8 years old. I just turned 69. I'll give up my age. So 1960, I was 8 years old, riding around to the park by, you know, getting on my bike. It's not like now where you got to watch your kids like a hawk, you know.
Right. Yeah, sure.
You didn't hear about kidnapping and abductions and, you know, all the crazy shit that goes on. You know, so I was always independent. They just kind of rolled with it, you know. I think maybe because I was the middle kid. I think my sister, who's younger than me, got a lot more like, you know,
okay. Well,
like
she's a girl
maybe
too.
direction, and she is a girl.
Yeah.
And the youngest. And my older brother was born right after the war. They probably, you know, listen, they came to America. He was about 3 or 4 years old. They didn't, you know, they land in America. They got to learn a new language, you know, assimilate into society. Yeah. They were more dealing with themselves, you know, the trauma of being concentration camp survivors, Holocaust survivors. You know, that trauma never went away. So
no, I'm sure.
I think somehow I skated by. You know, I got to skate by kind of doing my own thing a lot and not getting the brunt of too much negative input. It was all just kind of acceptance and then mostly positive input. They were amused. They were amused by the whole music thing that he found something, you know, because once I got the bass, I mean, I was just on my bed, you know, trying to learn how to wrangle this thing in, you know,
because I didn't know anything. That they were supportive of you like that is very cool because it was so foreign. I mean, you know, most people I don't think would have been that, you know, people tend to, my comfort zone is what I know. Yeah. That's how most people tend to be.
Yeah, of course. I'm like that.
And most people, you know, and then coming from the harsh conditions they lived in and survived.
Beyond harsh. Yeah.
Yeah. Beyond anything that anybody who hasn't lived there can imagine.
Yeah.
I think that was really like very open and cool of them, actually.
Well, unbelievably.
Yeah.
You know, my mom and dad, my dad mostly because he had a pickup truck because he was a cabinet maker. You know, it was just easy to throw a guitar case and a little amp. And he bought me my first amp. I bought the bass, you know, it was like, hey, if I buy a bass, can you help me buy an amp or whatever? I think I was over having a paper route. I always had a job since I was like, you know, 9 years old or something. Always like paper route and I worked at his shop, you know, he'd give me a few bucks, $5 to clean the shop and help him, you know, install on jobs. Even when I was little like that, all the way to being like about, you know, 18 or so. I mean, and then I probably could have gone into that business, be a cabinet maker. I got really scared because I was playing in a band already. My fingers had a table saw and radial saw and all the band saw, all that. But anyway, going back to, God, the question was about 15 minutes ago.
No, yeah.
A long-winded answer about how I got started. I mean, Jesse was starting let's go back to that. Okay, is that,
He gets his contract.
He gets his contract. He's over starting, you know, on a Monday night, I'm guessing it was. You know, a lot of people are doing a whole album, record Monday through Friday, 5 nights, do 10, 12 tracks. Boom. That's not the way it's done anymore.
No.
That's the old school, you know. And before that, it was do a whole album in a day, you know, wrecking crew, or 2 days, or a session.
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
Anyway, he gets to the studio and something had happened with his bass player. And I don't know if he didn't show up. This day, I don't know if he didn't show up or if he showed up inebriated or not quite sure. And I was a huge fan of his. So it was an odd feeling, but he called me up and he called me and my parents. What are you doing, Bob? I went, hanging out, nothing, you know, probably watching one of 5 channels, 2, 4, 7.
Yeah.
And he said, get your bass and get down to Paramount Studios, Santa Monica and Vine, ASAP. I need you. I go, what's up? He goes, I got a band of like 8, 9 guys in the studio. We're waiting on a bass player. I go, I need you right now. How soon can you get here? I said, well, probably by the time I get my shit together, it's a half-hour drive. It's going to be close to an hour or 45 minutes. So that's what I did. I showed up, shaking like a leaf. You know, I just turned 20, and
all these guys are
cigarettes. Yeah, Jim Keltner. Well, they're all about 10 years older than me.
That's what I figured.
10 more.
Yeah,
10 more. Jim's 10 years older than me. You know, I came to learn later.
Yeah.
And so was Jesse, 9 or 10 years. So, and I was smoking cigarettes at the time. I got in the studio, I light up, and I just remember kind of shaking, shaking like a leaf, you know.
Oh man.
Anyway, he had a band with a horn section, well-known horn players. You know, I won't go on name them all right now because it'll take too long. But Jim Keltner was there. That's enough. I was
that's enough.
A huge fan.
Yeah.
I was listening to everything he did with Gabor Szabo and, you know, Mad Dogs, George Harrison, John Lennon. You know, blah blah blah, on and on. He had already had a huge resume by then. And I guess I did well enough on the first night. He goes, well, see you here tomorrow. and Tuesday through
What
Friday.
did he give you charts, or did you just?
No, we just kind of learned the song on the floor. They were
Okay.
simple songs,
Okay.
He'd show them to me. And a couple songs, one of them had a distinctive bass line that he had that was kind of drove the song. It was an
Okay.
instrumental. And
So it's just the right.
several other, right place,
Yeah,
right time.
Yeah.
I guess I did well enough to, go, oh yeah, he can do that. He had come and heard me. Besides, Jesse had heard me once, because before that gig, I took a road gig in 1972. Right before that, that's right. I skipped that with a lounge singer.
Okay.
I don't know. You've probably seen the movie Casino.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
It was kind of like that era.
Yeah.
1972. I was on the road, and the singer had a contract with the Sahara Hotel, Las Vegas, and Lake Tahoe.
What a cool gig for you.
Yeah, it was cool. I quit. I've gone back to junior college. I skipped that thing right before I met, or at the same time I met Jesse. I went back to junior college, and my two high school buddies who I was in high school jazz band with, that's a whole nother story. They had already been, I knew these guys because they were in also a kind of a rival rock and roll band that we played battles of the bands against with, in high school. They took a gig, guitar and drums, with this lounge guy. He was a guy who told a few jokes, hey, and suit on and sang some songs, told a joke, corny, but that
was the gigs then. Yeah.
That was the gig.
And you can make a living doing that.
Yeah, I made a living for 6 months, and I conscientiously, just kind of went, I don't want to do, I just quit, after about 6 months of doing that, going back and forth between Vegas and Tahoe and maybe a couple of other, Denver, Colorado. You'd work in a restaurant lounge in Denver, Colorado for 3 weeks, 2-3 sets a night, have an apartment there. It was fun. It was a great time. And so I quit that, saying I don't want to end up being, a lifer doing this, because I saw some guys who were quite a bit older than me in other bands, because they were doing that. I went, I don't want to do that. So that also helped me, kind of cement my whatever.
It's amazing how you knew this session thing at that young of an age. Never. It's not like you grew up with session players like as your buddies.
But you know what? This is kind of part of that same story. We'll move on in a minute.
No, it's cool.
But when I went, let's say we stayed in Vegas, we'd stay in Las Vegas for a month, 4-week contract.
Okay.
I would drive out in the drummer had a van, so we put all our gear back there. When we went to Vegas, that was the first time I did it, because I distinctively remember bringing my tuner that I had just bought, a Harman Kardon receiver, a turntable, 2 big speakers, nothing portable about it, and 50 LPs, because a box would fit, a packing box would fit 50. So I filled that sucker up. And, we only played at night, it changed, maybe a couple times a week. We would do 3 sets a night. It would be 8, 10 and 1 in the morning, or whatever. Or another night we'd start at 9, 12 and 2, it was there was entertainment constantly. There was a famous, Borscht Belt comic.
That's so funny.
He would be the headliner, or Little Anthony and the Imperials. We were the opener probably. But I brought those albums, and that's when I started reading album credits. That's all the albums I had album credits, whether it was the Ron Carter albums with Grady Tate, or all the jazz albums, the Miles records, or all the Muscle Shoals, or Bobby Womack records that had the Memphis Boys, or David Hood, and Roger Hawkins, God bless him, he just passed this last week.
Muscle Shoals.
Yeah, I was reading all these credits, and Bernard Purdy, Chuck Rainey, Jerry Jamot, Al Green had just come out, I think. So I was reading the Hodges brothers, and Teeny Hodges. I was getting familiar with all these players. Oh, these are the guys that create that sound. So it kind of also helped me go, yeah, that's cool. Those guys they're doing that. I want to do that, whatever that is. And so that, it wasn't more than a couple months after I left that touring situation that Jesse called me.
That's
and it
so
just
wild.
it's just kind of complete serendipity, right? I mean, I don't know if that's the right word, but
no. Well, how do you look at that? That's like, do you look at that like, I don't know if you're a spiritual guy. Do you look at that as a God thing or the universe thing or random
I'm
luck?
spiritual. I think it's like a lot of random luck and being just good enough to kind of maybe take it to the next level and kind of keep learning on my way. I mean, I don't know. Jesse could have called for that solo record. He could have called, like, there were, I mean, it wasn't like it is now. There's not as many people that were known in town. There were probably a lot of great people in their bedrooms that no one had heard of, but
sure.
There were.
But he'd been around. He'd
been around. He knew everyone.
Bass player. Yeah.
10, 25.
Yeah.
Instead of like 250 now.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he could call any of them. He just took a chance on me. So I don't think about it that much, but I kind of like right place, right time, a little bit of dumb luck, and someone who had a lot of faith, or just enough faith in me to launch, get me launched. Or just, I'm sure he wasn't thinking about getting me launched. He was thinking about getting his
bass
damn record, his record recorded, it was an emergency situation,
How much do you think, I've come to realize, it appears in talking with people, not just musicians, but everybody. I always try to, everybody's supposed to be doing something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but sometimes you're not supposed to be doing something. And it seems
nowadays,
yeah. When you're supposed to be doing something, your likelihood of success, and when I say supposed to be, I don't know who's pulling the strings or determining, oh, you're a rubber stamp maker, you're a carpenter, you're a cabinet maker, you're a bass player. But when you're supposed to, when there's a slot that you're supposed to be at, that tends to happen if you're open to it. That's the way it seems anyway.
Well, I put myself open to it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wasn't that goal oriented. I've never been that goal oriented, which is, it's kind of like it's not a great attribute. I don't
it is. If you look at your career, you could advocate how goals are awful for you and then look at your career.
Well, anything I ever tried, I'll put it this way. Once I start playing, anything I ever tried for, or, kind of like tried to make, what I mean? Tried to make happen, if that's the right way to put it, or, start calling, oh man, that would be great if I could get that gig or whatever. And, back in the day they still happen, auditions. Luckily, I didn't have to suffer through the indignity of too many auditions because I wasn't good at it. But my point is, anytime I tried a little bit harder than my natural, just kind of complacent, laid back manner, it didn't happen. I've been really fortunate that the good things have come my way. I mean, I've nourished relationships and friendships, and through that, I think, and they're genuine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not like you're kissing ass to somebody like, oh, this guy can land me some gig.
Yeah, that's not my style, really. I mean,
but I don't think that works.
Sometimes there's a fine line with that. That's like the old joke. That's like the old joke. The difference between ass kissing and brown nosing.
No.
Depth perception.
Yeah, very true. But I don't think long term. That doesn't work over your career of 45 years of doing this.
Well, this is year 50.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. I think, especially in the arts.
Well, next year is year 50. This is like the end of 49. I take that back.
Is there an asterisk next to it because of COVID? like Babe Ruth's home run?
I didn't think of that. Yeah. I guess so. There should be, right?
I don't know this.
It is kind of dumb luck, just, although I have nurtured it, because I'm forever interested,
yes,
staying on track. I got off track. We can get to that,
Okay. All right. So Jesse Ed, so you play you do the album,
Yeah.
and then he sort of helps launch this big journey of yours, him and Keltner.
Well, he and I will say that huge debt of gratitude, debt of
Gratitude, yeah.
debt of gratitude to both of them. They dropped my name probably, maybe this many times. I don't know.
That's cool.
5, I don't know. I'm not inside at home what they're doing, but I think it was kind of the simple thing of maybe somebody coming to town to record, or calling before they come to town. Hey, we want you to play on the record. Hey, you have a bass player? You know what I mean? Or can you recommend a bass player? It had to be something as simple as that. And a couple times Jesse did mention my name. And a couple times, and maybe more. And maybe it could have been a lot more, and I didn't get the call. But I know of a small handful of times, John Lennon.
John, you gotta get a gig. That's probably not a bad one to get.
I mean, I should find it. I think it's in a flat file somewhere. One of my gals, my girlfriend's flat file has a lot of art stuff, and I have one drawer of mementos and some photographs. Yeah. And there's a Cream magazine. Do you remember Cream?
Of course, CREM. Yeah, with the
Cream
cool letters.
Magazine. John Lennon's on the album cover, and I just thought of this, but he mentions that there's like an interview with him, and I think he's with Jesse. They were hanging out a lot at the time, and I think my name, I think Jesse mentioned my name, and I think he wanted to use me just because he loved my name. He goes, he said something about Bob Glaub.
Yeah.
I don't say my name very much often in third person, but
sure. But that's cool.
He got a kick out of the name, and I think I got the call because of that.
A lot of people do, apparently, based on what you told me.
Yeah. So next thing I know, I'm getting a call from Phil Spector's office. Can you be at A&M Studios, on such and such a night, 7:00 start, and talk about nerves, because this wasn't that long after that first Jesse record. And then Jesse also recommended me for a Rod Stewart record, which ended up, turning into a couple. And I, met Steve Cropper there. And then Jim Keltner, I think, recommended me for a Booker T solo record, which I only played on a track, but through that, maybe he mentioned me to someone, and
that's amazing.
That's just kind of how it works. It's kind of, I always liken it to being a good plumber. If you're a good plumber, if you have a good plumber, somebody's always looking for one.
Yeah.
Right. And you go, man, we need a plumber. My guy's fucking unreliable. He doesn't show up, and you have a plumber and you give the person their name. Next thing you know, you've turned 10 other people onto that guy, and he's got a clientele list, a mile long. I won't say it happened like that to me, but it's a little bit like that.
Yeah.
You meet people along the way, and then such and so producer, you did something they like, and next time they come to town, they call you themselves rather than Jesse or Keltner having to recommend me. And you build relationships,
Talk about the non-playing aspect of that. Why do you think, forget about your playing, because there's a lot of great players?
Yeah. I'm way down on that list.
Well, that's not true, but there's a lot of great players.
Yeah, obviously.
What is the intangible that you felt that why the phone did ring like that? And it rang, when you get a call from Phil Spector, it's a fucking major call.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he's calling you.
I mean, that was the start of phones starting to ring a little bit. And I didn't feel like I was ready for the calls because I hadn't done enough. I hadn't done enough. My reading wasn't good enough. There were some sessions a producer would call, and I didn't know who they were, what type of music was. I would ask, what kind of reading is on the session, which was really a downfall for me. Right. But somehow I got through. But the non-playing side, to answer your question, I think it's by being a team player, not calling too much attention to yourself as a musician and a a person, a man,
Yeah.
you know, or woman, you know,
Yeah.
with whatever case, not calling too much attention to yourself, not, you know, being interested. I think I
Yeah.
always brought that, an interest and a
Curiosity.
curiosity, and maybe without saying it, eager to please, you know,
Yeah.
without, you know, bowling someone over with too many words about it,
Yeah.
but doing whatever it is, like being humble, you know, in other words, and leaving your ego at the door, you know, being a team player, because it's not all about you. It's all about a song, you know, and a songwriter and a singer. A singer and a song. The songwriter isn't always the singer, right? So
Sure,
they're not
yeah.
there in a lot of cases. But being willing to please, you know, whatever that is. That's a different in different situations.
Yeah, but knowing, so when you go into a situation, did you say, hey, listen, some version of I'm in the service business, let me make sure I provide service. And in each case, it might be different, but those other intangibles are all part of that package?
Yeah, I didn't say anything like that to myself. I was
Okay.
too stupid and naive. I was just in the moment, excited to be there.
Right.
I think there's something about that, you know,
Yes.
someone's
yeah, enthusiasm takes you a long way, man.
Yeah, enthusiasm is a good thing.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
enthusiasm, I think that can be infectious, you know, trying to make something as good as it can be at that moment, you know, without it being spoken about, you know, just
Yeah.
enthusiasm that is kind of envelops a room, and maybe pours over to one musician, or if they don't have it, you know, if they're having a bad day, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
enthusiasm is infectious. I agree with you.
Yeah.
When you get somebody that's excited and that you want to be around that person.
Yeah, and just being in the moment without even, that's a phrase that I don't think I even heard till the 80s or 90s, right?
Right.
Being in the moment, you know, but I think being in the moment was always maybe a strong suit. And when I wasn't, it went to shit. Because
so
there were times that I wasn't in the moment. Yeah, sure. I've been divorced twice. married twice, married, divorced, and been through that. And,
yeah, that's a lot.
You know, I will say that, you know, I tried not to carry that to work, but, you know, when you're not feeling good about yourself, it's hard to be enthusiastic. If you're not enthusiastic about your life, then it's hard to be enthusiastic about anything, you know.
Yeah, and divorce is one of those things. This is my second, but you don't have the manual how to unwind this thing, and it's like getting married, there's no manual, but it's a natural thing. Getting divorced, fucking unnatural.
Yeah, and you put two daughters, you know, teenage daughters in the mix, and
it's horrible, man.
Rebuilding relationships. So there was a period where I won't say I was it wasn't dark, but it was kind of like when you go in a movie theater and they show the previews and those side lights are still on. You know what I mean? Those side lights at the movie theater, it's kind of like almost dark.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. You know, that's
it's
funny,
not
man.
somewhere
It's
I
not
like to
dark,
revisit,
it's almost dark.
But it's semi-dark. It's like not sweet chocolate, it's semi-sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, bittersweet.
Yeah, man. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
but that's
it was kind of like that.
Yeah, that is important, that enthusiasm, because you have, Bob, you're a super humble guy, but there is a reason why opportunity A led to opportunity B, and it's not the same for everybody. I mean, you know, you've had this, like, and I'm not blowing smoke, but it's true. You've had a marquee career with marquee artists. And
I mean, it's pretty amazing.
If
I stop to think about it,
right?
And the phone's still kind of sort of ringing,
which
is amazing,
which is great. And so I'm always interested in what from your perspective why that happens. And I think enthusiasm is a great word. Enthusiasm and wanting to please. Like what the?
Well, enthusiasm and being, pride in what I do and trying to get better and sound better, play better, just get better, I'm still searching for that tone,
Sure.
I've got a million instruments that all sound good. Not a million, but
yeah,
quite a few. I love that coffee cup, by the way.
You know what? It's my wife. This is from England.
It's the blue beans. We have a case of 4 of them we just bought
from England.
Yeah. Well, no, we buy them. There's an Indian,
Oh, they're probably from England.
India grocery store, but
okay.
The English people are way into Indian food. Right?
Yeah.
So they go there to buy the groceries, and it's a takeout, restaurant too. They also have English stuff like English teas, and they have beans.
This is what for my wife. She, how like beans is like a staple for English.
Oh, I know.
People,
I love. One of my son-in-laws is English.
Yeah. Does he eat beans and potatoes?
He eats those beans. Yeah. We grew up with the green can Heinz beans.
Bingo. Yeah. That's so funny.
But anyway, let's see. What were we saying? What were we talking about?
Jesse, Ed, and Jim. So they kind of talk. Let me ask you this. Talk about, you mentioned the John Lennon. You played on the rock and roll album. Phil Spector produced it, and Jimmy Iovine was the assistant.
Yeah, I distinctly remember Jimmy being the tape op.
Assistant. That's like that's the tape guy.
Yeah, Roy Cicala was the engineer, famous New York engineer. They came out from I think it was the record plant in New York.
That's so cool. What did you learn anything in particular from that situation?
Well, I learned a lot, I think, more about human nature and people's behavior. Musically, I only played on 2 songs on the record. That's all I ended up on.
So what did you learn about human nature?
There were 25, I think there were 25 musicians.
Holy shit.
On the floor, and some of the most famous horn players in LA, some Wrecking Crew guys, and Jim Keltner, Hal Blaine on drums. I mean, all these people that were kind of like Wrecking Crew guys, 6 guitar players, Jesse being one of them, a young Larry Carlton, but older than me, all these guitar players, 2 bass players, Ray Neapolitan and myself, who did a lot of work for Phil Spector, kind of after the Wrecking Crew heyday, when he was using Carol Kay primarily and Ray Pullman and Lyle Ritz. But so I learned it's hard to go back there, but when you have 25 people in a room and I'd been in orchestra playing timpani and percussion in high school. So I knew what it was like to play in a large ensemble, and it's a lot but that's very structured. You're reading you're reading the paper, you're reading the dots.
Well, there's one chief and a bunch of Indians too.
Yeah.
And it's fixed who the chief and who the Indians are.
So this was different. You've got John Lennon, like everybody, like, of course, like a lot of the older guys, I wish I had, a lot of the older guys brought Beatle records for him to sign for their kids. I thought at the time it would be like too much of an imposition. That wouldn't be cool, to do that. And that's all right,
But he did that. He was really he was cool about that.
Yeah, he was cool. He signed them.
That's cool. That's really awesome. I wouldn't have thought of that either. I'd have been weird.
But I mean, you get 25 guys. I think that was the first time, or maybe second time I'd been in the studio, and you see there's no real structure. Things are happening organically. So you have to be willing to, like I said before, leave your preconceived notions on what it is or what you think it might be at the door, and just be in that moment and let the things flow. And if there's somebody in the guitar section who has an idea, because between 6 guitar players and 2 bass players, that's a big section. And the horn players are coming up with their parts. The drummers are just playing in the, when it happens, they just fall into a groove. They don't need much direction. You get Hal Blaine and Jim Keltner, they didn't need anything.
No.
But just kind of human nature, just like behavior, just like going with it, not it's okay to not be the guy with, oh, I have an idea. Because if you get 25 guys with an idea, it's going to be chaotic.
Nothing's going to get done.
So it's okay for 3-4 guys to have an idea and let them hash it out. But not everyone has to be, like you said, chiefs and Indians, you know. So I think I learned how to be a good soldier, you know, just kind of be there and kind of play off what I was hearing. And also,
yeah, but I think that's a pretty, for you to be a young man that age and be that observant, that's a pretty smart thing.
Yeah, and I also went with Jesse. You know, everybody loved Jesse for some reason. Out of all the guys on the floor there one night, Jesse, Phil, unbeknownst to me, I think Phil asked Jesse if we wanted to come by the house after the session. So pretty late at night, we went up to, I was driving Jesse. I was designated driver.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked it. He liked it. You know, I had no problem with it. It was more time together, you know.
Definitely.
Inside his head. And he was funny and charming. And, you know, we'd get barbecue on the way at his favorite little barbecue place or whatever, or on the way home. That's even talking about different sessions. But we ended up he said, oh, you want to go to Phil's and play some pool after a session? I was kind of nervous because Phil wore a gun.
Oh,
you know, and you could see it. You could see it at the session.
Wait a minute. So did they have open carry in California back then? So
there's still no open carry. He probably,
I didn't think so.
He's just a rogue, you know. It didn't work out so well for him.
No, it didn't. You know, but wow.
You know. But you know, at one point he was very very dapper dresser. He had a 3-piece suit on. I think he wore one all the time. You know, and a vest, you know, suit.
Yeah. With a gun.
And, you know, he took the coat off at one point, and you could see him. We're all in the Studio A and at A&M, and he's in the control room. And I was sitting next to Jesse Davis in the guitar section. And he took his suit coat off, and you could see the shoulder holster. You know, it was probably a 38 snub nose, or I don't know that much about guns, but it looked like, you know, I'd watched enough TV, like Dragnet or whatever.
Dragnet.
I'm dating myself again. Whatever other cop.
I haven't heard that in like such a long time.
Car 54, where are you?
That's a little bit before my time, but Dragnet, I remember, man. That was funny. Jack Webb.
Yeah, Jack Webb. There's a thousand stories in the city. This is one of them. Anyway,
that was good.
You could see the gun, and Jesse looked over at me and goes, "You better get in tune, Bob." And I kind of got a little scared. But we went up to his house, and it was very odd. And it was another early lesson in the human condition. You know, someone as famous as him. Well,
very eccentric.
Very eccentric.
Yeah.
Without getting into too many details, it was very eccentric and kind of unnerving. I didn't really like being there. He put his gun on the pool table, you know, and there were drugs around.
Yeah.
I was no angel. I was an early introduction to doing drugs.
Yeah, but when you see a gun, and guns and drugs don't generally
bad mix.
You don't need to be a super street smart person to know guns and drugs is like an uncomfortable thing. You know?
Yeah, but that wasn't one thing. I think every time I started working with someone new, you know, on any project, I mean, the human condition, I guess I don't really have a great answer to your question, because everyone's so different, and you have to be open to letting whoever it is you're working with, you know, give them that creative space and not bring too much of your own opinions. If they want an opinion, be ready to give one. It's a fine line to dance on, you know, sometimes. Because sometimes somebody, not at a Phil Spector session with 25 musicians, but, you know, in a 4 or 5 piece rhythm section, recording with a singer-songwriter, still to this day, somebody who hasn't made a demo where you're just kind of copying what they've done, like go, "Hey, Bob, what do you think?" You know, so you have to be ready to give an opinion, but know when to kind of hold those opinions back. You don't have to. That's, you know, one thing I learned when you asked about, you know, what I learned from that, you don't always have to say what you're thinking. And that goes in all aspects of life,
Yeah.
I think. And the older I get, the worse I am at it, because I think the older I am, you kind of unedited yourself. You know how old people say whatever the fuck they want on the
Man, I totally get it. You know what's funny? I'm not a religious person, but I am pretty spiritual. And I sometimes, one of my sort of prayers or mantras that I always say is, let me know the things you want me to say and the things you don't want me to say, because they're equally important, especially if I have been that person where I tended to not have as much of a filter in my younger years as I should have. Not offensively, but just like what you said, you don't always have to say what you're thinking. It's like, it's not necessary all the time, you know? That's
Not
very
really.
good advice, man.
Well, it's pretty simple, and it probably has served me well most of the time. I think I've been guilty of, maybe saying a few too many things when it wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
And not being good ideas or whatever, or taking up too much space while somebody's waiting, looking at their watch, waiting to downbeat of the song, and you're telling some stupid story. You know what I mean? Eating up time and money.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things like, knowing when to talk and knowing when to shut up. And it's so simple, but it's not always so easy.
That's a great way to put it. It is simple, but not easy. But it's very impressive that at such a young age you were so clued in to what in reality are the more important things.
Well, I don't think I was clued in at all. I think just instinctively I did them. So by that, I was clued in.
Yeah.
But there was no thought process.
There was no. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was just out of sheer fear.
Good instincts. It followed your instincts. So it was great.
Exactly. Just instinctual.
That's great, man. Really good. Yeah. That's phenomenal. I want to ask you about some of the artists you've worked with, Bob. If you could tell me, how did you wind up first connecting with them, and maybe a cooler, interesting story or any kind of takeaway that you got from that experience. Let's start with Dave Mason. He was on this show a while back. I think we chatted briefly about it, but start with Dave.
Well, Dave Mason, I started working with him in 1974. And I think this is all around the same time, you're talking about John Lennon, and then I worked with Rod Stewart in 73 on an album, started meeting people out of my little high school friend comfort zone. I was meeting the cats that I was looking on album covers, and suddenly I was playing with Steve Cropper and, playing with Fred Tackett and playing, whoever it was. There's so many that I'm grateful for playing with. But in 73, I remember I met at a jam. I met some guys. I don't even know how I got, through Jesse, because Jesse, when we played at bars, I started playing bar gigs with Jesse. He would have a little horn section, 2 to 3 piece horn section. Because on his album, he had like a 5 or 6 piece horn section on a couple of instrumentals. So I met these horn players, and they're all beboppers,
Okay.
And I'm like a little rock and roll kid, self-taught, didn't go to music school. I was in the high school jazz band, and that was a stretch for me because I had not, but the teacher, it gave me it was a confidence booster, I will say, because he had enough confidence in me to have me play electric bass out of the guitar book, while the bass player, who, by the way, has gone on to be one of the most well-known upright bass players in the country and world, his name's John Clayton. He plays with like Diana Krall. He's a famous big band leader and big band arranger, and phenomenal bass player. I mean, so he was reading the bass book, and I was just kind of noodling out of the guitar book. Something the band director, his name was Bill Paney, saw something in me that brought something to the situation that was different. A big band.
That's nice.
But in answer to your question, so Jesse had these beboppers who, And they start jamming. They go, "Hey, Bob, you want to come to a jam?" So I'd go to this guy. He just passed away about 1.5 or 2 years ago, named Gary Barone. He
Okay.
had a pad, they had a little music room. And I'd go to their house, and they had different guys. I started going there. I won't say often, but more than 4 or 5 times.
Right.
Over a 2-3 month period. And one day I meet these guys. Jim Krieger was his name. Very good guitar player.
That was the guy who
Mason's band.
He wrote.
We Just Disagree.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
He wrote the song. He died quite a few years ago. Unfortunately, he died very young. But his part, and then the drummer who was in Dave Mason's band at the time, as well, Rick Jagger. Well,
Okay.
they were at the jam. So I meet them, and then, I start playing with some other guys at the jam, Ed Green being one of the drummers. I don't know if you know who he is.
I don't.
Famous LA session musician who played, he's probably most well known for being the R&B drummer in LA. He played on all of the Barry White records.
Oh,
So
wow.
You hear one of
He
those
must have
Barry
a
White
groove,
records,
man.
Oh, yeah, sensational.
Wow.
He also played on one famous song on Asia by Steely Dan. Forget the name of the song. It'll come to me. But anyway, Ed Green's there. So I'm starting to meet all these people. So, you exchange numbers. It's way before, no cell phones, but you write your number.
Send me your contact information.
I never had a card when I was, playing. I had a card later on when I tried a new side hustle.
A new spiritual guru.
A new side hustle. I can tell you about it if you want to go there.
Well, finish this story and tell me your side.
Yeah. So it's around 73, probably going into early 74. And we started doing some gigs. We did a couple club gigs at jazz clubs. It was a fusion band.
Okay.
There was a guy named Greg Matheson on keyboards. He wrote some tunes, and the horn players all wrote a tune.
Mm-hmm.
A guy named Sal Marquez, Gary Barone, and Jock Ellis.
Okay.
They all wrote. And I owe them a lot because it was a great launching pad to meet other musicians and play music that was out of my wheelhouse and comfort zone. And I wasn't the best at it, but I did the best I could and was enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting. I've learned a lot about that. Like, I've had a lot of guests on the show that are way out of my comfort zone, and I push for that from learning from all you guys.
Oh, that's
like
good.
Like I had Ron Carter on my show. I was like,
that could be intimidating.
I'm not a jazz, especially from that era. So I was kind of scared. That was the only interview. I was actually like jitters,
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make sure I honored the guy's legacy, even though I didn't, I couldn't name all the songs he played. You know what I'm saying?
Well, who could? He's probably played on,
like
25,000 songs, 25,000 tracks.
Yeah. But I've learned that from you guys as to, to keep being open, and it's really changed my life.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. It's
that's a great thing.
No, it's wonderful, man. I'm sorry. It's not about
that's all right. So finishing that story. So I meet these guys, and one day I think it was Rick Jagger. I think it was Rick, the drummer.
Yeah.
Might have been Jim, the guitar player. Hey, Dave's switching bass players. You want to come audition for him? There's the A word, audition.
Yeah, the A word.
I don't think I had done one up until then. It was kind of like you'd hear about guys. I started meeting other bass players too, I had to audition for that gig or whatever. And it seemed like such a foreign thing because everything else up until then, which had only been like a year and a half of gigs, happened to use the overused organically.
Yeah.
But
you didn't just have look, some people have 1 year of experience 25 times. Yeah. I don't think you've had that kind of career, man. You've been in the trenches like a year and a half for you, maybe like 15 years for somebody else.
Well, it could have
been 10 years. Seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was in it. Once I started in, I was in it. I was no turning back. Although the side hustle year.
The side hustle year.
I'll tell you, I'll get you. The side hustle year and change.
Okay.
A year and a half. Anyway, so I meet these guys. You want to come audition? It's only going to be between you and another guy. I think Jim Krieger. Both Jim and Rick were from Wisconsin.
Okay.
different cities in Wisconsin, Manitowoc and Milwaukee, I think. So one of them had an old buddy, you know, they played in bar bands together.
Sure.
Who was Mike. God, I can't think of his name. I got to be friends with him. But anyway, so both he and I were there the same night at SIR in a little room. You know, obviously he gave me some songs, you know, I'm going to go learn Feeling All Right, Only You Know and I Know. And then handful of other tunes. They probably gave me 5 tunes to learn. I don't remember how that happened. Like, listen to these tunes. I went, you know, at the end of the, you know, I played for like whatever, a half hour, 40 minutes or so, and felt good. And I was probably nervous, but I was probably felt pretty confident that I'd learned the stuff good enough, as best to my ability in the short amount of time allotted, because it happened pretty quickly. I think, you know, a week later.
That's a very forgiving, the way you say that. Like, that's a very realistic way to make sure you can meet your expectations. With the tail end, when you said, I learned it as best I could in the time frame allotted.
Yeah.
That's being fair to yourself. You don't no, but you know what I'm saying though, because most of the time people are like, man, I could have learned it better, but they're probably not thinking about in the 4 days or 5 days you had to, you know. I think that's, I'm saying that because that's something I need to be more like that, to be honest with you. So I admire that you did that. That's a smart thing. Well,
and the tools back then weren't like now, you know, with YouTube and endless, sometimes ad nauseum choices on the internet of, you know, whether you subscribe to Apple Music, Spotify, or whatever, you know, hear anything, see a YouTube of anything, you know, live performance, none of that, you know. So all I had was an LP. And, you know, put a needle on and keep putting it back and put it back, and your bass and an amp, you know, no headphone like preamp that you can plug in and play along with it. Kind of, none of that, you know. Which I do now. I have a setup right here on my laptop with a plug right here.
Yeah.
A bass right there, about another 8 right there, you know, and I can plug in and play along with stuff. Anyway, I got the gig. I mean, I don't think there was certain feel that Rick and I had when we played. Oh, and that's where I met Mike Finnegan, the great.
The keyboard.
Yeah, who a dear friend. And something happened when we played together. Felt good. I heard a little bit outside on the hallway, the door of the other guy. Yeah, I didn't learn the stuff any better than him. I think there was a chemistry that happened. Whatever that little thing, you know, there might have been, you know, 2% more of
enthusiasm,
monosodium glutamate, you know, to make it stick together. You know, I don't know, but I got the gig, and that gig became kind of like, I think I took the gig. I was starting to get calls for sessions on the strength of just playing on a couple big albums or well-known albums,
like the Lennon album.
Yeah, they're not so big, but maybe, you know, musicians know about them. You know, they start reading, you know, even though there's no credits on that record. Or Rod Stewart, Atlantic Crossing, people hear and they go, oh, wow, he played on that track or whatever.
Great record.
I was starting to get calls, but I told you I didn't feel confident enough to be in that recording studio with that red light on, or white light that says recording like 5 days a week. I think I needed more experience playing, because I hadn't really played in a band situation or been playing steadily with anyone except for jamming and stuff pre-meeting Jesse since high school, because there was no other band. So I took this gig, and after a year and a half, I think then that was like 74 into sometime in 75, and we were on the road a lot.
Right.
I remember not being home very much, you know, and I know, you know, where I lived and who, you know, I had a roommate holding me on the fort. And I think that gave me more confidence being on stages and playing with the, you know, multi-bill, you know, 2-3 bill, you know, he was an arena act at the time, Dave Mason, and meeting people like Graham Nash and Boz Scaggs who would come to gigs in the Bay Area. And I don't know, just gave me confidence. They would be complimentary after the show. Oh, man, you sound great, or whatever. You know, it kind of gave me more confidence, whatever that was. It was a confidence builder. And somehow after a year and a half, I got myself fired off the gig.
Are you comfortable telling that story?
Yeah, sure. No
Okay, yeah,
problem.
because
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it was. You told me last time we spoke. It was a good, interesting story. It was good.
Yeah, why I got fired. I think Mike Finnegan, who was, he's one of those magic, you know, he's one of those guys who playing with him is exciting. He's great. He brings an excitement level to every situation he's in. And we've stayed dear friends to, now. It's like, it's one beautiful thing about playing music, building friendships and making friends. Building is the wrong word, but we didn't have to build anything. We were friends from the first minute we met, but nurturing relationships, and friendships, that's probably a better way. It's just staying in touch, Anyway, he left the band, I think, to play with CSN or someone. He just wasn't available for a string of gigs that maybe came up last minute. And it was like a couple weeks or 10 days of gigs. And I just remember distinctively, and I probably don't want to name who replaced him, throw anyone under the bus, but whatever that chemistry was, because it was Dave and a 4-piece band. So 20% of that chemistry just went out the window. Because I stood next to Mike. And,
Okay.
He played B3 and piano and clavinet a little bit, keyboard player. But he's most well known for being a tremendous B3 player and singer. And that was just gone from the first gig. The guy replaced him. And just when I was just there, and I'd already played 18 months of gigs, been in and out of town for 18 months. But back then we would leave for 10 weeks at a time, just
wow.
really long tours, not come home, Or if there was a week break, I'd fly my then girlfriend out to New York or something and rent a car and remember going to Maine and going up the coast there. But I was gone a lot. And so that chemistry is gone. I think he saw it on my face on stage. I think one night, whatever that look was, he said I looked really bored, and I was.
Yeah.
I've been playing the same songs, the same set. And then with the new guy playing it not as well, I thought. I just think, well, this kind of sucks now.
Right.
And it was hard being on stage with something that I thought at the time sucked. It probably didn't, but to me, it had gone down a notch.
Yeah.
So he just called me up one night and said, I'm replacing you. And it hurt,
Yeah.
because no one had ever called and let me go, I've always, even like a job scooping ice cream at thrifty drugstore, I didn't get fired, I quit.
Sure. Have you bumped into Dave since then?
I have several times, not a lot.
Yeah.
We don't stay in touch, which I'd like to be in touch with him, but we don't he's not a real stay in touch kind of cat.
Yeah.
When I saw him, we had a couple fun words with each other. He remembers me doing a certain comedy sketch thing when I was 22 years old and taking on a fictitious name. And so he still calls me if he saw me today, I think he would still call me Chuckster.
That's so funny.
He would call me the Chuckster because I took on this character and would go into character and try and bust up the room,
That's so funny.
But yeah, we don't stay in touch, but I have I have fondness for him. He's written some great songs. Oh, yeah. And we already talked about the other stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I need to go.
No, totally cool. I wanted to ask you about a couple more people, and I'm going to ask you about your side hustle afterwards. I'm going to put a note here, so I don't want to forget that. Jim Morrison, you were on that American Prayer. I'm just curious, did you actually work with Jim, or was that just...
No, Jim had passed away by then already.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Someone, I think maybe Jim's wife had probably found reel-to-reel tapes of him reciting poetry into a tape recorder just by himself. And so she probably gave it to Ray Manzarek or Robbie Kreiger, one of the three surviving Doors, or all three of them. And they ran with it, they saw an opportunity, and those guys were really cool. That was, I think, in 1977 or 8, I was starting to do by 76, my starting to do, you know, session things, just kind of steadily kind of going like this and like that. And then not long that after it went like that, you know, but we can get to that.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
tell you when that was. But, you know, I got the call from the guy who was producing it. Had I already played? Maybe I'd already played with Robbie. I don't think I had, because I did some stuff with Robbie after that. But he called me, and those were basically just jams. They had kind of, we just jammed in the studio.
Yeah, I listen. I have that, and I was a huge
do?
Doors fan. I was a huge Doors fan, and I was disappointed in that. It wasn't.
Yeah, well, because it wasn't the Doors.
Yeah, it was like it was no.
It was just kind of just some one chord jams, basically.
Yeah, and it was not really music.
They were just one or two chord jams. There weren't, and there was no melodies, and
right.
You know, there weren't. It wasn't songwriting. Robbie had written the bulk of those songs.
Yeah.
With Jim wrote the lyrics to quite a few, but Robbie wrote the music to most of it.
Most of the Doors.
And they had chord changes, and you know, a lot of them were interesting.
The Doors.
Some were blues based. Yeah, they were so different than anything on the radio.
Totally
you know,
different.
in the 80s and 90s, if you were a musician in LA, to say you liked the Doors I always felt like that wasn't hip. Because a lot of musicians didn't like the Doors from my era. But I liked them because they were so different sounding than anything else, including everyone, all the Mersey Beat, all the English bands. That obviously changed my life, you know, in a huge way, and changed most everyone coming up. Yeah, in my era in a huge way. But what was I saying? So that was like a week of jams, 5 days of jam sessions in the studio, and that was about that. I mean, I'm still friends with Robbie. I don't see John. If I saw him, I'd say, hey, you know, I would like to talk to him. They were all really sweet, you know, and if I saw Ray, bump into him. But Robbie, I've played golf with him several times over the years, and you know, we talk like one time a year. Yeah, maybe more often. He owns a beautiful studio out in Glendale, a suburb of LA. So he's such a good player, man. Oh yeah, he's a very unique player. Lovely guy. Yeah, really good player. Really good player. Great golfer.
That's what I hear. I've had a couple of his buddies on that golf with him. Do you play with Ed Roth?
No.
Okay, because he's gone golfing a couple of times. He told me he's a good golfer.
Oh yeah, he's good. It's because he's so small, you know, and he it's like weird to see him hit the ball the way he does. Yeah, but he's got a great golf swing. He's been playing since he was a kid. But yeah, those were jams. Robbie actually, I don't know if I'm speaking out of school here, but he actually said about, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, I think I was at his studio doing a project. He goes, yeah, he named a song off that. I forget the name of it. He said, yeah, I should have given you co-writers on that. You know, it was a platinum album.
Was it? Yeah,
because a couple things were just totally just one chord jam. I don't remember the names of them, or I could look and report.
Do we need to get a GoFundMe petition going here?
Nah, I'm good. no baby violins out for me. So far, knock on wood, I'm doing all right.
Bob Dylan, how'd you hook up with Dylan? And when was that?
God, just through there was a woman I knew named Debbie Gold, who was playing the role of music contractor to some artists. Mm-hmm. She somehow befriended a handful of artists and a lot of musicians, and started being a liaison between producers, artists, and musicians, who maybe those artists and producers, maybe some of these musicians were not in their Rolodex or wheelhouse to call. Yeah. So she made a gig for herself doing that. And she called me, are you available to work with Bob on, Wednesday night, whatever. I think I only ended up on one track on that album.
Oh, okay.
And played on a couple. That was kind of an amazing evening, though. Not his most amazing album, although all his songs are mostly amazing.
Yeah, pretty damn good.
Yeah. But I was just I knew her. She called me, and a handful of other musicians, and that's who she called. And I didn't get a call back to do a whole bunch of other recording. by any
There was a
means.
couple of guys that did that. God, there's another guy whose name comes up all the time who used to call people and put them together like that. I can't think of his name.
Musical contractor,
Yeah.
not Nick DeCaro.
No. But man, I've heard his name so many times in LA. Probably
Like what?
like from the 90s and onward. He would just put people together. He was like a rainmaker sort of dude.
Oh, he's a guy like for live musicians.
Yes.
I think he put together bands. He was like a clearinghouse to
Totally.
put together bands for touring acts, like pop acts.
Yes.
Why can't I think of his name?
I mean, I've heard his name 40 times at least. He was.
Oh yeah, I know who you mean. I never had to suffer through that. You know, like I shouldn't say that because he probably opened the doors for it. You know, that's mean to say. He created a different era. Yeah, he created a job opportunity for himself, and he actually told a good friend of mine who's a great drummer. At one point, I think my friend had already done some big gigs in the 90s, and then, you know, maybe he called this guy you're talking about. I don't know why I can't think of his name.
I can't think of his name either. It's not an uncommon name. It's
like Lauren something.
Yeah,
Lauren Gold or no, that's Debbie Gold who called me for the Dylan thing. Lauren something. Okay, it'll come to me. Yeah. Anyway, he called him and said like 6 years later, oh, you're too old for that gig. You know, my friend was interested in like a touring opportunity, maybe behind some pop singer. I don't know who it was. And oh, you're too old for that gig.
I hear that like a lot of times from guys that they get called to a gig and then they go out to the gig and then they get dismissed because they're too old.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't put myself inside of any kind of like, I'll use the word for a third time, suffer the indignity of that. I don't put myself in those situations. You know, because that can happen.
Yeah.
Ageism. I mean, now a lot of pop artists, conscientiously put together bands. I won't say a lot, but some I see on TV put them together by a look. You know, there are a tremendous amount more women musicians, obviously nowadays than there were in the 60s, 70s. That are known. They might have been around, but there was not the internet to perpetuate them and see them on Instagram doing their thing. So there are a lot of more integrated bands, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah,
and racially integrated.
Totally.
It's not always just people don't always put together bands anymore just on.
No, I totally get it.
Musical merit, and I think it's a good thing. You know, opportunity for all. You know,
totally, man.
I have no envy or jealousy of that. I think it's a good thing. So, like I said, I don't put myself out there, hang my shingle on that, trying to get a gig where I know I probably will not be.
You don't have to. You're Bob Glaub. All right, that's an inside joke. Tell me, knee-jerk reaction, top 3 studio experiences you've had.
Boy, that is a tough one. I don't know if I can answer that one. I mean, that John Lennon one, I will say, is pretty damn memorable.
Yeah. Because
it was surreal, you know. I mean, I walked into everyone who walked down the hallway to A&M Studio, to Studio One, Phil Spector was waiting there with a name tag, a little sticky name tag, those white with the red border.
Hello, my name is.
Yeah. So he had a fictitious name for everyone, everything from.
Oh, a fictitious name, yeah.
Well, fictitious meaning it's not you. They're real, not fictitious, that's the wrong word, but famous people in history.
Oh,
that's it could be a president, a politician, or
so someone would have come in and maybe
a sports. Yeah, well, I was early. I made sure I was early to that session, so I was one of the first ones. He was waiting in the hallway with a little staggly name tags. Maybe he took a look at me. I mean, I looked very Jewish. I don't know. He said, Adolf Eichmann.
Oh my God!
And we all wore these name tags.
That's so weird.
It's pretty weird.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things memorable about the session, not only the music.
Yeah.
There was him playing before anyone got there. I told you I got there early.
Yeah.
I think Kenny Rogers and Cher and
Wow.
Harry Nielsen, I'm name dropping, were in the control room just hanging out, you know, waiting for
Wow.
the spectacle to happen, you know. And, you know, slowly, well, not slowly, pretty quickly, musicians started to enter the studio. But I probably got there a half hour earlier or something. And Bill put on River Deep Mountain High by Tina Turner and played it back louder than I've ever heard anything played back since, except maybe one time by an engineer friend of mine named Nico Bolas, who's, you know, worked with Neil Young and hundreds of other people who likes to play back loud.
That's wild.
But maybe that was the loudest playback I'd ever heard. And he was ranting about how, you know, the greatest record ever made, you know, and it didn't do well in America. It's a well-known story, you know, about Bill's disappointment and Tina's disappointment, Ike and Tina's disappointment in River Deep Mountain High. Anyway, so that and meeting John Lennon, the whole thing, that's very memorable. That's long-winded answer to your question. After that, it's just a succession of just great experiences, some not always so great, some just mediocre, but somehow I've always just been excited to get the call, you know.
Yeah.
Exciting. I mean, there's an old joke that sometimes the best part of a gig is the call.
Greg Leese said the same thing.
Oh, did he? Yeah, well, it's like a, you know,
then you got to go to the studio, you got to rehearse.
I won't say it's a worn out musician joke, but it's a musician line. You know,
but I think it's like that in any service business, you know.
Anyone of our age, Greg and I, Greg's like a year and a half or two older than me, but we're the same era. You know?
Yeah.
I met Greg, you know, in like the late 70s when he was playing in a band and I was session, you know, for hire guy.
That's amazing.
But
that's a long time.
But anyway, sometimes that's the best part of a gig.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, I don't think about those. The great experiences have far outweighed any not so good experiences. So to single out another couple is really hard. I mean, I've played on hit records. I mean, and maybe not known what you know that it's pretty good at the time, but I won't say I know the secret to what a hit record is going to be. But I have heard a few by other people in the studio. I went, you're going to make you're going to make a lot of money on that.
Oh, you have heard some, and you
yeah, I was next door in 1976 working at the Sound Factory, and next door at Hollywood Sound, Boz Scaggs and Joe Wissert were mixing Silk Degrees.
Oh.
And I went by because I had played just like a week worth of gigs with Boz right before he made that record. And then, you know, with Jeff Porcaro and David Page, but by that time they already had their, you know, little group, and Hungate came in. Hungate, you know, David Hungate's unbelievably great.
Sure.
You know, I had such a huge, I have such huge admiration for his playing, his musicianship. But anyway, I heard the record. I knew it already been in the band for the record because I was running into Jeff Porcaro and he was telling me about it. But then they played me, you know, of all the stuff they were mixing, they played me a playback of a mix of Lowdown. I just told them, you're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a great song. Real good song.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever been in a studio and went, well, that's going to, you know, have legs. But I've known when something's good or, you know, better than something else. But yeah, I mean, there's been a few times in the studio with Jackson, you know, maybe early on, one of my early recordings with him, The Pretender.
Yeah,
I thought, well,
such a great record.
That's a pretty fucking good song. I mean, that's like one of the best songs I've ever heard, you know, best bits of songwriting I've heard, man. That's really good.
The bass line's pretty dominant on that track.
Yeah, part of it, I guess. But it's not even about me. It's just about
No, but I'm just saying that
what happened.
That's unusual. You don't have like a hit song with a dominant bass line too often.
Not really. I guess respect yourself, or
I mean,
there's not a lot of them. Yeah. Well, the Motown stuff, but they're more subliminal. There's that. I mean, the first record I made with Linda Rondstat was really exciting because it was the second record I'd played. You know, Peter Asher started calling me for stuff. Right before that, I did a record with Bonnie Raitt in 1978, or I think it came out in 79. And then, then he hired me to play with Peter Asher did to play with Linda. So those were both pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I was playing with amazing musicians. There was a whole new group of players that I really hadn't done that much with. I had met Waddy Wachtel and
sure.
Cooch, Danny Korchmar and Billy Payne and Rick Marotta were on those. But I'd met them and played with them on a few tracks with Warren Zevon. Well, Waddy I played on Zevon's whole, almost except for maybe one song or two songs, his whole first solo album. So, I mean, I was familiar, Waddy and I, became friends like a year prior to that. But yeah, maybe those two records, working with Peter, that was exciting because Linda was a ginormous star at that point. And I was a fan. I mean, to be in a room with her singing.
Yeah, she's got a great,
really
she's
good kind of like I don't know what to, incomparable, really. Like that voice was at that time, it was kind of like the rock country pop version, as strong as Aretha was in the R&B.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that much of a force. I mean, you can't compare the two.
No, they're different.
Like apples and oranges. But I mean, it was, so to be in a studio with her and have that in your phones and kind of, or her singing a song to you while you're running it down in a room or something without phones on was, that was impressive. So that was exciting. But there's been so many other times, magic moments in the studio. I just can't pinpoint 3 of them.
How about live gigs? Anything come to mind that was like, yeah, that was really an amazing experience?
Well, sitting in with Stevie Ray Vaughan when we discovered him in Montreux, Switzerland before he got signed. Kind of a magic evening. Well, I was there in 1982 touring with Jackson, touring behind a record called Lawyers in Love.
Great record.
Yeah, not everyone says that about that record.
I love the title song was great for sure.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, it's got some great stuff on it, but it's probably not that far off to say it's not one of his most beloved records.
No, but he's got so many freaking, and plus some of the early stuff he did was like, how many times can you do that in a career? I mean,
well, yeah, he got lightning in a bottle back then,
Totally.
But okay, so we played the gig. I didn't know who Stevie Ray Vaughan was.
Sure.
I'm a huge blues fan, by the way, but I wasn't like in tune to what was like a new guy playing around Austin, which is what he was. And he'd been, hanging around Austin. So we played our gig, unbeknownst to me. I didn't look at the schedule. We were at the Montreux Jazz Festival. And so I didn't look at who played the night before because we probably just came in that morning, the morning of the gig from some other town in Switzerland, Germany, or I don't remember the schedule, but unbeknownst to me, the night before Stevie Ray Vaughan played the Montreux Jazz Festival, didn't know who he was. But after our gig, that was the Montreux Jazz Festival at that point was in a casino, there was an auditorium there. And so after the gig, I started roaming the casino, and go down to the basement. I didn't know anything I had never played it before that. Go down into the basement. And I heard music, so there was a club. I think it was called the Musicians Bar. I don't know if I have that right. But maybe that was just the nickname. But it was the place you went,
Yeah.
And I heard through the hallway, I heard this really fast, like double shuffle. And it's probably, the song by Stevie Ray and Double Trouble's Love Struck Baby.
So I was just thinking that as you said,
it's more about a straight eighth, but it's a fast double shuffle. I think it might have been Love Struck Baby, but if it wasn't that, it was something kind of like that groove. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of a din, it was kind of, you couldn't hear, discern like actual, notes and articulation. Once I remember it had like a double door, those kind of like doors that would be into a banquet room at a hotel.
Like French doors or something?
Well, they were not they're not windows, French doors that open like that. You could open either one. Usually one's locked, but I kind of did one like that. And I remember just like, okay, I let one close and stood there. And it was kind of like I liken it to be that scene in Back to the Future where Michael J. Fox was like, isn't there a scene where his face is just peeled back like that? I just couldn't believe the ferocity and like the intensity of what they were playing, this blues and his guitar sound. It just completely blew me away within 5 seconds. I stood there for about a minute. I think I closed the door behind me and just stood at the door. I went, holy shit. I mean, this is bad. I'd seen Albert King in like 1967 at a club. So this is 1982. That must have been so great. Yeah, but this is the closest thing to that I ever heard of, that kind of sheer power. I saw Muddy Waters. I didn't see Howlin' Wolf, but I saw a lot of the blues greats, from the Mississippi Delta to Chicago. And this is the first time I'd heard anything that remotely resembled that kind of intensity.
Yeah.
And so I opened the door and there was a house phone because the hotel was right above the casino.
Okay.
So I called everyone in the band.
Oh.
I said, everyone, you got to come down here. This is the baddest shit I've ever heard. You got to come hear this guy. I called Russ Kunkel, I called Craig Derby and Cooch. And I think Jackson was in the restaurant eating. I think maybe I found him or somebody else found him. I said, you got to find Jackson. I don't remember who found Jackson. He says somebody interrupted him while I was eating. Oh, you got to stop and come down here, this guy. Well, we're up not too much longer after. I'm down there the whole time after I call everyone because I don't want to miss much of this.
Yeah.
And so we're down there listening and everyone's as blown away as I am. And on the break, well, of course, Jackson knows Stevie's then manager.
Okay.
So then that's the introduction. We all meet and, we start having a few drinks together and meet Stevie's manager. And Stevie had his wife there. I met Chris Layton and Tommy Shannon. And don't want to be too much of a name dropper, but those are the double trouble. Those are the
players.
Double Trouble cats. And, then after a break, they asked, oh, you guys want to come sit in? And I was the first one, I think, to sit in. Tommy said, hey, you want to play? And he was very kind and he couldn't believe. He said, man, you're the only cat he said something like, you're the only cat who's ever sat in and plays the shit right.
Oh, that's a hell of a compliment.
Yeah, I mean, I played in blues bands, so I kind of knew what it was. I probably wouldn't be comfortable with all of his tunes because they had them all worked out,
Yeah.
They were semi-arranged,
Yeah.
They had a thing. They played 1 million gigs already.
Right.
But I sat in and, and then Jackson and Cooch sat in and I don't know if Russ played drums on some, but we were up till like 4 a.m.
Wow.
Kind of like not just playing, but doing illicit activities,
partying,
drinking, we were partying. We were up and talking about building relationships, lasting friendships. So that was super exciting playing with them. And they, shortly they got signed. I mean, John Hammond, I think maybe was there and saw them, or I don't know if they went to New York. I forget the whole story. I haven't read the whole book. I have the Stevie Ray Vaughan biography sitting on my nightstand. I haven't read the whole thing yet. I keep reading parts and putting it down. I'm quoted in the book a few times.
Oh, that's cool.
But mostly about that evening, But Jackson offered. He had a studio downtown LA, a loft that he had converted into a big loft that he converted into a studio, kind of rehearsal spot. And he offered it to Stevie, like when you come to town. After he got signed to Columbia by John Hammond. So next thing I know, they're in LA and Tommy, we've exchanged numbers. Tommy Shannon calls me and goes, man, I saw that P bass of yours standing, on a guitar stand out there. I think all he had was his jazz bass with him. You mind if I use it? I said, no, go ahead, be my guest. So I think that's on most of that record, that first Stevie Ray
first record.
Yeah, my bass. He liked it a lot. And so there's that connection. I still stay, and then we stayed in touch. Stevie, I saw him every time he was in LA.
That's nice, man.
Go see him when we had a night off on the road and we were close by. And Chris and I still stay in touch. And
so you're really good about
so much.
Staying.
Yeah, for some reason, Tommy and I haven't after a number of years. It happens. We fell off each other's radar. It's nothing personal. But
Sure.
Chris and I still stay in touch every year, you know, a couple.
That's nice, man.
Yeah, yeah. So that was an exciting night.
Hell
Just
yeah.
sitting in with them for a half hour or something. And it wasn't my or our gig. Other standouts, maybe playing to like hundreds of thousands of people in Central Park for some like Peace Sunday thing around the same time
With
in
Jackson.
the early 80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then another one with Jackson and backing band. For another Peace Sunday around the No Nukes concert.
Oh yeah, that was huge.
With 1979, but he also played in Battery Park during the day.
That was huge. I remember that.
Yeah, it was huge. So yeah, just like playing in front of that many people is, I mean, it's not as scary as playing in front of, 25 people going like that in a club,
People have told me that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's much more intimidating. But still, playing in front of that many people, there's a certain elation that comes with seeing that many people. Yeah, the energy coming off of a crowd like that's amazing. So yeah, not musically speaking, but just crowd size. Those are pretty impressive. And then there's been a ton of good gigs and some mediocre ones along the way too.
While we're there, tell me your worst, did you have a nightmare gig?
Well, a nightmare gig. There was one gig I did, I want to say it was in the early 90s. I could go look on my All Music thing to see, when we did a record with Percy Sledge. I'm pretty sure Greg Lease was on that record and on the gig. I won't say it was a nightmare gig. It was kind of like a big comeback. I mean, he'd been touring kind of the Southern, I won't call it the Chitlin circuit, but more like Southern small casino gigs. I mean, Percy, he had When a Man Loves a Woman.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, that's a perennial, as Woody Allen said in
Totally
in that movie. In Broadway, Danny Rose. That's it. You're a perennial. You'll always work in this business. Anyway, we did a gig at the House of Blues, I think. House of Blues, or was it BB King's? I forget.
In New York or Orlando?
No, in LA.
Okay.
LA. We recorded the album, and it was like his big, like album release party gig, And I won't say the gig wasn't a nightmare because he was really good and the band was great. But at the end of the gig, he started vamping, like James Browne, certain entertainers, the band vamps and, James would shuffle off, do his thing. Percy sat on the edge of the stage.
Oh, no.
And vamping on When a Man Loves a Woman is not quite the same as vamping on Cold Sweat or something, or some vicious funk groove.
Yeah.
It's kind of medium tempo, slow to slow. Not real slow, but
it's slow.
Yeah. It's so I mean, it seemed like a half hour. He did it for fucking ever. God bless him. I mean, Percy's gone, and he was as sweet a man as you could meet. He was so nice. But I remember just going, oh my God, get me off this. I haven't had that feeling too many times, like, oh my God, get me out of here.
Funny, man.
Get me off the stage. He just vamped on that ad nauseum. I mean, seemed like 20, 30 minutes. I don't know how long it was.
But when it's a slow thing like that, it does feel like it's forever,
Yeah. Until somebody gave him the hook, I guess. I don't know.
The hook.
It wasn't me. I would have done it 15 minutes sooner.
All right. So now tell me, when you said that there's a point where things started to decline and you got a side hustle. Talk about whatever.
Well, sessions fell off in like 82. I would say it would be the first time when the Roger Lynn invented the Lynn drum machine.
Oh.
And MIDI started happening. The first Yamaha, I don't know if Yamaha was the first with the DX7, but pretty quickly there were a handful of bass players and drummers and horn players that the workload kind of went, I won't say it went like this, but it went, like that.
Yeah.
For a couple of years. And I mean, I won't say immediately, but by 1984 or so, I bought a Linn drum machine. You know, I bought one, embraced the technology,
Yeah.
and learned how to program and do it. Not that I was writing hit songs or anything. I just kind of wanted to know what it was, because if I did get a call and go in the studio and there was no drummer and just a Linn drum, and let's put up a little drum program, I'd know what to do and try to learn how to make something feel good, you know. Because I always like to play drums too, you know.
To your credit, though, being open-minded enough to not say, well, that thing is ruining me. Say, hey, let me check it out.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely cutting into workload, because suddenly DX7 had a great bass sound, you know.
Yeah.
Keyboard player, pop music was like getting synthesizer heavy, and synth bass line. I think Stevie Wonder had been doing it earlier with the Mini Moog, which is pre-MIDI, you know. So the sounds, it wasn't like something brand new, but it became more prevalent, you know, in the LA, probably in New York and Chicago, whatever. I don't know so much Nashville, but studio scenes. But so my workload went down then, but I didn't really do much about it, you know. I've just kind of toured through it and recorded with the people that, you know, kind of wanted a bass player, not somebody who played synth bass.
Sure.
Although in the late 80s on a tour with Jackson, I had a little synth rig, because on 2 songs, his keyboard player, my close friend Scott Thurston, who ended up being the Heartbreakers, not that long after that, played synth bass. And so I had to learn how to do it and do it on stage. And so I embraced it. You know, I didn't go on to loving it that much and have that part of my rig now, which I just saw Justin Mel Johnson on TV on Saturday Night Live a few weeks ago. He played with St. Vincent. He plays bass on one song, plays synth bass on another. So, I mean, if you want to play pop music now, have a pop music gig, you have to embrace all of that, you know?
Yes.
So I was lazy and didn't, you know, I embraced it, but didn't like go on to like, you know.
It's a different instrument.
Advertise that that's what I do, you know.
Yeah.
I can still do it, but I don't have a rig. I could get a rig today, you know,
right,
and do it. But so cut to like 2000. In 2002, I got divorced, like split up with my first wife in 1995. This isn't that interesting, really, but just chronologically, I think we were divorced by the end of 97, you know, officially. But
God, that's a year and a half.
Oh, yeah, all that.
Oh,
you know,
that's
all that who gets what business, you know.
Oh.
Anyway, everything's good now, you know, but it was not a fun time. And we talked about that before, about not being at my best at sessions.
Yeah.
But in 2002, I got remarried. And by 2005, we split up. But in 2002, work got a little slow again. I don't know what happened. You know, like by the mid 90s, people were all over the country. Besides, you know, it was the next wave of technology. Everyone had a Pro Tools rig or some, you know, Logic or some type of home digital workstation, you know, digital workstation recording facility. So a guy like Val, like my buddy Val McCallum, is one of my favorite bass players. I mean, he's got 2 or 3 great basses at home. I mean, he plays with, you know, I play with him with Jackson, and you know, he in his own band, Jack Shit, he plays with Davey Farragher. He plays one of the great bass players around.
Yeah.
But at home on his own stuff, I mean, he can just plug in a bass in his studio. And that's kind of the way it was. A lot of guitar players play bass really well, or just good enough. It doesn't really matter sometimes, as long as it feels good, you know. And so the calls started going down again, like in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. So I had become friends with this guy named, who's a really close, dear friend of mine, named Gary Waldman. He managed an artist named Neal Casal, who passed away.
Man, I had Neal's last interview was with me.
Oh, really?
And it was on a Monday. We spoke the remainder of the week. He was calling me. He was very lovely. Just like I had a really nice time on your show. And
oh yeah, I love Neal.
Really nice guy. And then 2 Mondays later, he passed.
Well, he wrote me 2 weeks before. He sent me, he had gone on a little road trip. Well, he was living in Ventura, so it wasn't that far, because Ventura is about an hour drive north of LA. And then his first record was recorded in a home, like a vacated home where Dean Martin used to live.
Oh, wow.
It was Dean Martin's like weekend retreat, like the Rat Pack used to, I think, party a little bit there, or just go, hang out for a weekend or something. And Rancho Nicasio, I forget the name of it. Shit, my memory's so bad at names, but it doesn't matter. But he had gone there to visit, somebody was living in the home on the estate. It's like a horse farm property, and beautiful home, which was in a kind of a state of disrepair when we recorded the record. But the guest house that the great drummer, who also just passed away 2 months ago, was still can't get haven't gotten over that, probably never will, Don Heffington. We're friends and we played a lot of music together. He just passed 2 months ago. Anyway,
sorry about that.
He had just gone, Neal, well, thank you. Neal had just gone up to the house where we recorded his record and took some pictures inside the house. And he knocked on the door, the people, do you think I could go inside the house? This is where I recorded my first record. And he was all excited about it and sent me a couple of photos, a selfie of him, smiling with the living room where we recorded in the background. He goes, that's where we recorded. And, that was 2 weeks, I think, before. Yeah. Anyway.
It was eerie, and I don't want to take too much away, but one of the questions I asked Neal, he was talking about, I don't remember what it was. And I said, how are you about asking for help?
Oh.
And he said, musically, he goes, I love doing collaborations. I said, no. Personally, he goes, well, let's skip that.
Oh, yeah. I don't think anyone knew what a dark place he was in. Because, one of 100 people would have helped, know. But you just never know. Like, this was manifesting for quite a while in his head. He had some demons to begin with, and then some personal issues with some people, women, issues. And it didn't work out well. It's a real tragedy,
Lovely guy.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. So, okay, skipping back to more mundane stuff about me. So I met Neal, in 1995, which was also another dark, the week we recorded the record was the week after my father passed away. And I was super close with my dad. My dad was super cool and really supportive and just a sweet man, just cool. I was one of those lucky people that had a great relationship with his father. I mean, we didn't always see eye to eye on stuff. Thought I was like crazy when I bought a second home I was, I couldn't afford it, What the fuck are you doing? He'd say in Hungarian,
Yeah. But especially coming from his personal background.
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty big, pretty big of him, the things he embraced.
Oh yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
And set me on my path, and I'm still on the path and forever indebted, and grateful, and so much love. But anyway, it's a dark period. But through that experience, I met his producer, Jim Scott. I may have met Jim when he was an assistant engineer at the record plant before that, but I never really worked. We worked together a week that week. And that's another friendship that, we're friends today and, stay in touch all the time, text messaging.
That's nice.
And probably stay more in touch now through losing Neal.
Yeah.
Because he was the conduit. And since then, Jim Scott, his producer, probably hired, I've lost count how many times he hired Don Heffington and myself, Don
the drummer.
And myself. As his rhythm section on a lot of records over 25 years. I mean, I don't know if it's 12, 15, 20, but a lot of projects, So we've maintained, besides a working relationship, a friendship. And his manager, Neal's manager, who also managed Jim Scott, that became a thing in like the 80s, like producers and mixer engineers got their own managers, to get them work.
To get gigs. Okay.
Yeah. so my friend Gary Waldman, who I'm also still really close friends with, who managed Neal and already had like a little stable. He was kind of telling me, you know, we would hang out and he goes, oh, well, besides Jim, I managed this guy and this guy, and out of New York, you know, he lived in, they're Long Island guys, you know, Neal and Gary, but he was living in the city. And he goes, and I was maybe I was probably complaining at the time, you know, it was my second marriage and maybe I had expectations on myself. It's hard to put myself into that period, but there's a slight like discomfort zone. I wasn't working as much, maybe feeling like I wasn't bringing enough, you know, because my second wife had a full-time job, and, you know, I'd be hanging around a lot. And I've got no problem with doing that, playing all day, just fucking off all day. And, you know, it's a career of like the phone rings or it doesn't. You
totally.
know?
You're a business owner, man. And I always talk about that. And that happens in business, man. Yeah.
So that was one of those slow periods, you know, there weren't a lot of records going on. I did do it. That's when I toured with Dwight Yoakam. I had just toured in 97, 98 for 2 full years with John Fogerty. And I toured in 2001 and 2002 with Dwight Yoakam. We were at right across from the Pentagon when the Pentagon, like on 9/11.
Oh my God.
When that blowed up.
Holy shit.
That's how I remember where I was on that year, 9/11. But anyway, so things are slowing down. It's now 2001. I've stopped touring, and, you know, you get home from a steady touring schedule, and got married in 2002, and then suddenly not much going on. So Gary Waldman, who owns this company called More Barn Music, goes, hey, well, you know, why don't you think about, you know, you don't have to stop playing, but you know every engineer and mixer, producer in LA. There's only a couple guys repping them all. Why don't you get a little stable? You can just work under my name. You don't have to start a whole company in DBA, and I'll take 5%. You know, the rate was 15%. Y'all take 5, you take 10.
Okay.
And I didn't think much of it. I went, well, it's kind of a no-brainer. I can still keep playing, you know, and kind of just rep some guys and get them gigs. And like right away, I met a great engineer who was a disciple of Jeff Emmerich, you know, the Beatles engineer, a guy named Steve Churchyard. And somehow it just worked out. Word got out that I was repping some guys, and Bill Simzik was going to produce the new Eagles album right around that time, and call me. You have an engineer, you know, like I think word got out that I was doing that, and through my reputation as a bit, and like I got this guy. Oh, this guy's Steve Churchyard. He's really good and really nice to work with. You know, he's a really sweet guy, and you know, he's got a great vibe, great attitude, and great engineer. He got the gig, and, you know, started working for like, you know, it was like a year-long gig. So suddenly, you know, placement. Like whatever, you know, if he's making whatever, talking, you know, the economics of music are kind of boring. But if he's making, let's say, $1,000 a day.
Yeah, you're getting $100 a day.
No, we're getting 50. No.
You're getting 100 and
150.
Getting,
150.
Yeah,
so
it's cool.
Yeah, so a week that's 500. So if he's doing that for a month long and like 9 months out of a year, suddenly that's $2 more grand a month I'm getting from that one guy.
Right.
So then I got like 5 other guys who I didn't get that many gigs for, but you know, even if they got their own gigs, they were having me like run it, you know, and do the paperwork and do the billing. And you know, I had a new laptop, and it was the one side that was really good about it. It forced me to use this side of my brain that was like completely dormant, you know, like learn how to make a invoice, and, you know, talk to people out on the phone out of my comfort zone about business. It wasn't my comfort zone. I sucked at it, but I did a good enough job and got some guys some gigs where it implemented my income for like a year and a half. I was still playing bass, but, you know, in between playing bass on sessions, I was kind of doing that, I call it a side hustle.
Yeah,
you know? And then one day I was repping this one engineer. I was doing a session for an artist at what is now called East West Studios. At the time it was called Cello. Mm-hmm. It was United before that. It's where they record, the Beach Boys recorded, and, you know, Frank Sinatra recorded. And, you know, it's a classic. It's still there. It's called East West, a classic old LA studio from the 50s. And I was there doing a recording project for Jim Scott with a singer-songwriter. I think it was Dana Manning from Canada.
Okay.
Really good singer-songwriter. And I'm like on a 10-minute break or something, you know, got to go in and play. And this engineer who I'm repping calls me, man, I got to get a 2-track machine over to wherever, some, you know, studio he was at in Hollywood or in the Valley. Can you call studio, you know, blah, 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 instrument rentals and get it? Well, I told him, like, I can't do that. I'm like, got to be on the floor in about like 90 seconds. I tried to do it.
Right.
I tried to get it done, but I got put on hold or something. You know, I probably had some big old cell phone at the time, you know,
Yeah.
in 2002 or 3. And I said, I can't do it. I'm recording, playing bass. And he got all uptight at me. And he got uptight, and I went, well, this kind of sucks. I can't really do a good job at either. I'm telling myself.
Yeah.
After I already tell him, well, you're going to have to get a call. You're going to have to call. And he was kind of uptight about it. He wasn't.
But like, what if you were like out of the country or just in a meeting?
Well, then maybe he would expect a business person to have a secretary or something. It wasn't that kind of business. It's a one-man. It's a 2-man operation. Yeah. I tried to call my partner. I mean, we weren't partners, but in New York, you know, Gary.
Yeah.
I don't think he was around. You know, I left a message or something. Yeah. Whatever. You know, it's 3 hours later. Couldn't get him. So there was that. And then, like, not that long after, I got a gig for another client who was a producer engineer to produce a Lucinda Williams record.
That's a good gig.
Yeah, and I got him the gig, and he screamed at me for the amount
for the money.
I agreed for his guarantee. He screamed at me, and I mean, I'm not that thin-skinned, you know. I mean, I'm not real thick-skinned. I'm somewhere in the middle, you know. Yeah. I'm not a tortoise. I mean, I'm a tortoise in some ways, you know, in the life race. But I'm not real thin-skinned. But he completely bitched me out. I mean, I got him the gig by meeting with the A&R guy. And I said, well, he's the right guy for, you know, and with him, with the producer, you know, but I made it happen because the producer called me from Nashville and said, man, you have anybody be good for, what about this guy for Lucinda? I went, perfect fit. Let's go out to Canner's Deli and eat and, you know, and talk about it. So we talked about it, and kind of the deal, handshake deal. Then I made the deal on the phone. So from that point on.
And he wasn't happy with the comp.
No, he wasn't happy with it. He fired me. Whoever made the deal was fine. And I just made a decision that day. I think that next day, my worst day of
as a bass player.
Yeah, up to that point, which was, you know, 30 years of bass playing. My very worst day or worst gig was tons better, like than my best day of managing engineers and producers. Yeah. Like that paled in comparison, managing. It just wasn't fun, and I didn't feel.
You did it though.
Yeah, it was good because it gave me some other, you know, skills.
Yeah.
You know, people skills that I knew I had that are useful or not useful, but I did it and knew pretty well. It took me about 1.5 years to realize, you know, like on its best day, doesn't come close to my worst day of doing what I like. So I just dropped it. I called Gary. I said, I'm done. I'm not doing this.
You know, that thing about liking what you do, that's another thing I got out of all you guys. I don't do anything I don't like anymore. I always used to do things for opportunity, but I don't do anything if I don't like it.
I read that you said that in your bio.
Yeah.
In so many words. And I feel the same. I mean, sometimes I won't say it's a rule of thumb. I try and do it as a rule of thumb, but I don't. Sometimes I'll do, you know, somebody will call me for a recording. I don't know much about them. You can find out pretty quickly on the internet about someone now. You can go, you know, bring up a YouTube or a song by them and find out. But you can't do that while you're trying to say, yeah, I'll be there, or no, I don't want to do it.
Right.
You can't say, well, can I call you back after I listen to a song on YouTube to decide whether I dig you enough? No, you can't do that. So, but I try and have a, it's kind of having a built-in antenna radar to knowing what you might be good at or might have something to contribute. So I don't like to do things. I'm kind of grappling with that right now, as a matter of fact.
Like with this interview?
No, not at all. No, about an opportunity. Like, thank God, an opportunity for early next year.
Oh man, that's great.
Yeah, but my heart's not in it.
No, it's a good problem to have though.
Yeah, it's a good problem. It's a quality problem. And
yeah.
it's like, do I want to do this? So I'm still trying to decide on. I told someone I'd call them back about a week ago, and I'm dragging them out about if I know my schedule, like in January yet. And I'll come up with the right answer. I think I know what it is, but I kind of want to make sure I check.
Well, you can get him a guy for 10%.
Yeah, well, that hustle's over. Although, I'm sure guys would be happy for me to do that for them.
Nowadays, they give you 20%, man.
Yeah, they'd be happy. So maybe you're right about that. I don't know if I want to be that guy again.
No, I yeah.
So it's like you said, it's a good, it's a quality problem to have work in the future that I'm not sure I want to do. I'm not that money driven anymore. I've been, my kids are grown up.
Yeah.
I've been kind of like, I don't have a fortune, but I've been smart enough to work, my overhead, I keep it, I drive an old car. I'm just, my life's pretty simple. So
Simple's good, man.
Yeah. Simple's
great.
I don't have to do everything.
But that's does it, a lot of times, does it count where how did they get your name? Does that count for something? And maybe not, but maybe not in this case. Like if somebody refers you, if somebody that musically you are like very in touch with, referred someone, would you be more inclined to, and you didn't know about that person?
You mean talking about me, referred me for a gig?
Yeah.
That I didn't know about?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a big, that's cool. That's a big calling card.
Yeah, right.
And then I'd be, if it turned out well, and you're forever indebted somehow to that person, for creating that connection. And then,
you pay it forward.
You just pay it forward. I've paid it forward a lot,
Yeah, of course.
I call that guy,
Yeah.
I was in the middle of sessions for John. Wow, I just realized my laptop got unplugged. It's about to lose battery power. I remember being in the studio with John Fogerty in the 90s doing a record and, playing on a song for a week, like 5 days all day, every day, same song with different drummer every day, but he'd always have me. And after a week I went, and then have me come in the next week and overdub to the drummer he picked to start over. And I go, after a couple of days of it. So after playing the same song for a week or so, when John, you got to call Duck or something, call Duck for this song. I did it twice. Called Duck, and Duck came in and had to play it a couple days, and we talked about it. Duck was so funny.
Wow.
And then same thing, like a month later, play on a song for a week, and you know what? I've played this so many times. If this isn't it, call Michael Rhodes. He'd be the perfect guy for this song. And it was. I had good instincts on that. So paying it forward, and then John being grateful that I made the right call and was happy with it.
That is cool.
That always feels good, paying it forward. Like, in any kind of way, I'm name dropping.
No,
it's all talking about.
Michael Rhodes is a very good bass player, man.
Oh yeah, he's tremendous.
I'm surprised you guys crossed paths. He's a Nashville cat, isn't he?
Yeah, but we became friends in the 80s. I knew about him early on during the beginning. Anybody who gives a shit or cares, you kind of know about players. He was just starting to, I think his session career started a little bit after mine, not that much longer, but by the early 80s, he was the man. He and Glenn Worf. I think Glenn came a little bit later, but Michael was playing with everybody. And I don't know whether, I don't want to say, be presumptuous enough to say that Michael is a fan of mine, but he did have to tend to some other kind of health issues or family business at the time in the 80s. And this was already in the late 80s, like 87. It was 2 times. It was in the 80s and in the 90s. He was doing a tour. He had done Rodney Crowell's record that had 5 #1 hit singles on it. Wow. It was a big breakthrough record for Rodney. Anyway, he was going to do a tour and then couldn't do it. And he called me. Michael called me.
Oh, that's cool.
Rodney on to me to sub for him. There was a million guys in Nashville. He could.
Oh yeah.
So we've had a
that's a long running
relationship. Good relationship since then. I'd say about 87 or 88 that tour was, and then on an album in the early 90s, like 93 or so, he couldn't make it again. Then he called me.
That's
said,
cool.
Can you sub for me on this record that Tony Browne's producing? Did the same thing. So, we started a friendship. I followed him because I loved his playing. I heard him play on some kind of live concert on TV with Lyle Lovett.
He's a really good player.
With Lyle Lovett. And I went, wow, this guy's a monster. So just kind of stayed in touch. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of young bass players in LA that I kind of I won't say I make it my business. I like people, but, I've reached out to people and have become friends with a handful of younger meaning they're in their 40s probably. Yeah,
like a Derek Frank or something like that.
Well, I've met Derek. I've become, I won't say I've hung out with Derek, but like Kaveh Rastegar and Tim LaFave and Sean Hurley.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them. Ava Gardner. Oh, God.
That's a funny name. Wasn't she an actress, Ava Gardner?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Ava Gardner. There's quite a few. Well, Lise, Greg's wife.
Yes.
There's quite a few of the younger bass players. I've just made my business to become friends with them. They all have something different to offer too, and are inspiring to me in different ways as people and musicians. Yeah. And there's more than just that, but I dropped enough names. I'll get a push broom and dustpan soon.
No, it's all good, man. Bob, tell me the last thing you listened to musically, like for pleasure.
Well, I gotta say that's pretty easy because last week Roger Hawkins passed away,
right?
And Nancy and I, my love my life, Nancy Nimoy. She's not, she hears me for ad nauseum talk about musicians I love, But, Roger Hawkins, that was a biggie, He's like, I never met Roger. David Hood and I'm a huge fan of David's and that Muscle Shoals sound, the Stax, which is different, Stax and the Memphis Boys and the Muscle Shoals, the Swampers, all those. Sure. I listen to so many of those records. I mean, that's just a huge influence on my musical, my musical wheelhouse. I owe that music and those players a lot. So Roger passing away last week was a big, was a big thing. And so I went back and kind of somebody had put online a Roger Hawkins greatest hits. So one night in bed, I think was the night he passed or the night after, we had like a Roger Hawkins. Well, it was probably more recent than that in the last 4 nights. I mean, I've listened to a bunch of stuff since then, but that's the thing that sticks out. We had a Roger Hawkins playback party and listened to, everything from Land of a Thousand Dances to Respect Yourself to, Staple Singer, Wilson Pickett, Bobby Womack, Paul Simon, Kodachrome.
Yeah,
great without the list in front of me, on great drumming, The drumming is sensational on all that stuff, the groove. David's not on all that stuff, but that was the main thing. And then I listen to music every day. I mean, I kind of surf Instagram a bit. I'm constantly getting turned on. I'll go down the rabbit hole. I'll end up for 20 minutes, hear some bass player or a songwriter, and then I, go, holy shit, holy shit. So I'm constantly like listening to stuff that I become a new fan of, and
Yeah.
then kind of like either friend that person so I could hear more,
Yeah.
or jot down a note and like go, oh yeah, I'll hear more of, I have stickies all over my laptop, not all over, but about 4 or 5 little tiny ones at a time of notes. So, but the Roger Hawkins playback party, that was big
I'm gonna
the
have
other
to
day.
check that out. Actually, I would like to hear that.
Yeah, I could send you a Roger Hawkins greatest, like 20 greatest hits, and it's phenomenal. I mean, it's the music I grew up with,
Yeah.
a lot of it from the 70s, Bob Seger, so many artists he played with.
I had
That's
a guy
incredible.
from his kind of, Reggie Young?
Well, I never met Reggie or played with him, of course. I mean, he's one of the most famous guitar players. I saw him play once. I saw him on the Dobie Gray,
oh, yeah, sure.
Give Me the Beat Boy.
Yeah.
What's the name of that?
Drift Away.
Drift Away. I saw that band who recorded that album at the Troubadour in the early,
that's cool.
I want to say about 73 or so.
Yeah.
And saw that band. I saw Reggie play with Dobie doing that album. It was like, the promo tour for that album, but I never got to play with him or meet him. I went to Nashville and recorded some in the 80s and 90s. I won't say quite a bit, but never got to play with him.
Interesting story. You talk about business. When he was in Memphis, he originally started in Memphis, and he said he would get, if I was lucky, I'd get $10.
Oh, wow.
$10 a session? He goes, no, $10 a day.
A day.
They were just that's why they all up and left.
Yeah.
Because they were just.
Yeah. The Memphis Boys. That's an interesting book.
I haven't checked that out, but.
Yeah, it's a big read about that scene, the Memphis Boys, that band who played on all those hits. Yeah, well, the Motown guys, I think, were on contract for like $250 a week. Back when Hal Blaine and Carol Kaye, the Wrecking Crew, were playing on all those, hundreds of thousands. I mean, into the thousands of records.
Of records, sure.
Yeah, but singles, hundreds.
Yeah.
And I think a 3-hour session at that point was $65 for 3 hours. So, it was 21 and change, or 20, just shy of $22.
Yeah, an hour.
An hour. So that's what they were making on those records in the 60s. I mean, it wasn't when I started doing it, I didn't get into it for the money.
No, nobody does. Nobody does, but you should be treated fairly.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody does, but you should be treated fairly,
Yeah.
Tell me the best decision you ever made.
Oh, to have children.
Oh, that's nice. You have 2 girls, you said?
Yeah, to have kids. I would say that's the best. That's been the most gratifying, because
that's cool.
Have, raising kids. Challenging, raising kids. You have 3, I have 2. It's challenging.
Yeah.
And but I couldn't be closer with them.
Yeah, that is cool.
And I have 4 beautiful grandkids now, so it's the gift that keeps giving. If you're lucky enough to live long,
Yeah.
Be around. So I would have to say that's my answer. I'm sticking with it.
Awesome. Tell me one thing that you're proudest or most grateful for doing or not doing in your personal life and in professional life, if you have those things.
Oh man. For doing or not doing? Well, I think of just persevering. I guess I don't use the word when I talk to people being proud of that, but meeting Nancy, after all, being married a couple times, and some people give up.
Yeah.
After one divorce. I mean, it can take the wind out of
one's
sails, a man or a woman, or man with a man or a woman with a woman, It does not matter. It can just take the wind out of your sails. It's just can be debilitating.
It's exhausting.
Mentally exhausting. So I think I'm proud that I just persevered and, just stayed open to meeting someone and meeting Nancy. That's part of it. And I'm proud of all the, great relationships of that. And, friends that I have and have maintained close friendships with quite a few people. That takes a bit of doing too. I mean, it doesn't take that much doing.
No, it's work. You have to.
You have to work at staying in touch. I mean, it's just so easy not to stay in touch.
Yeah.
And that's happened with a lot of people, but there's always a reason for that too. It's just like everybody has a full life, whether they know it or not.
Yeah.
They've got shit going on. I've got shit going on. And you stay in touch with people or you don't. I guess I'm proud of that, having a rich life full of great family and friends, maintaining friendships. I don't know if I'll go down the road of being proud of anything musically, I'm proud, it probably goes without saying, I'm proud to be going into almost 50 years of being a one-trick pony and doing, my phone's still ringing. I actually wrote Tim LaFave the other day, told him how much I liked his interview with him, and we chatted a little bit online.
Yeah,
we didn't talk.
But
I liked him from the minute I met him.
Really nice guy.
I'm always a little embarrassed. I will go. I'll be embarrassed to say, but I'll tell you. He calls me, "You're a legend, Bob." It's like you
are, man.
Like he goes, "You're a legend." I don't know what to say. Whatever. It's like everyone. I think Bob Dylan once said, "Everyone's a legend." You don't know what to say to that.
Yeah, but Tim's a very nice guy.
Well, what was I saying about
being? You said you don't think of it a lot, but you're proud of.
I'm proud of I told them hey, the joke is I wrote a little laughing man emoji. I said the phone's still ringing 50 years later. I went, it's kind of just like the running joke, like
that's awesome.
Me like Alfred E. Newman.
What me worry?
What me worry? It's like I'm just really lucky. So I'm proud of that look.
Good, man. Tell me what makes you happy. Now I get some tough questions here.
Oh, no, that's pretty easy. Good coffee, good food.
Tell me some coffee you drink, man.
Good friends. Oh, God, we switch off. Nancy's found this new one that we're getting, like probably, shipped from the evil empire, Amazon, I think. God, it's called something like... I forget the name. I could go in and get the package.
No,
it's pretty nice. It's smooth. We try different brands, but
I'm a big coffee guy.
What's it called? Sustainable, when things are it's like organic, sustainable. Sustainable coffee. I forget the brand name, and it has some simple name like that. God damn, I forget the name of it. But I've been enjoying that for the last month or two. But we switch off, We'll even buy a big bag of coffee at Costco. There's one we like. And by the time you buy a 3-pound bag of it, we go, well, we got to drink that, That takes a while. We go through and, let's switch off that for a while. So I don't know. Good
coffee, good food, good friends,
good music. I like good music. It can be all kinds. I think that has helped, I don't think it's that far of a stretch to say that's probably helped keep me working. Not that I get called for jazz gigs or that much versatility, but I listen to a lot of different kinds of music. So if I go into a studio, if somebody goes, "Oh man, you ever heard that record, blah, blah, blah," it's, and I go, "Oh yeah, I was thinking of doing it," something like that. So to become somewhat of a musicologist without having a degree in musicology is not a bad thing,
No, that's a very common thing for music, for the more successful people.
Yeah, try and listen to a wide variety of music. So I like good music. I like time with my family. I mean, nowadays, my grandkids are 4. Well, one's going to be 4 next month. So 4 to 8, I love time with them. Yeah. I love playing golf with my buddies. I'm not that good at it, but I love it's a social activity as well as being outdoors and a pursuit. It's kind of like golf, but I've never put in the time. to become excellent at it. I just like going out there and playing. I did get my first hole-in-one last year.
Did you? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky. You got to have luck for it to
I'd be
roll
the
in.
guy smoking cigars driving that cart, man.
Yeah, we walked. That's only a 9-hole course, but it was 186 yards and played 195 yards. Yeah, that was fun.
That's really cool.
They say one good shot will keep you coming back even if you don't play well. So
yeah, that's true.
I enjoy that, and that's about it. Pretty simple life. Good food, good coffee, good friends, and family, and like I said, and golf. I like golf. I like playing baseball now with my grandsons.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, go to their games. That's fun. Which is just an extension of family stuff. Oh yeah, my oldest grandson, who's 8, is singing the national anthem this Sunday. I am kind of like cannot wait to film that. Be there for that. I'll be there for that this Sunday. I have 2 grandsons they're one's 8, one's 6. And I have 3 and a granddaughter, but they play on opposite ends of town, so it's hard to get to both games. So one Sunday I have to go to one. I don't have to, but it's hard to get to 2 in one day.
Sure.
So that's a lot of fun, and playing good music. I've really enjoyed. For me to say that I've enjoyed the pandemic 15 months or whatever it's been, 14 months is. I feel guilty saying that because people have lost loved ones and health issues and severe money issues. And, I've been fortunate, knock on wood, that I've just had a good time kind of doing whatever I want, which is not that much. I kind of unplugged for a year plus, and I'm not one of those guys who can say they learned a new instrument or read 30 books.
I think most people I've talked to, if it gives you any comfort, have done the same thing. Yeah, they've really enjoyed the common thing is I've really liked not getting on a plane every week.
Yeah. It's been quiet, and I've just kind of learned how to be a little more still and learn how to be by myself even more hours,
Yeah.
I walk. I like walking. That's another thing I do for exercise. I'm a walker.
You're pretty fit, man.
40, 50 minutes ago. Well, I'm not that buff or anything, but my weight, I've lost 24 pounds in the last
over COVID?
Oh, no, 5 years.
Oh, that's a lot of weight.
Over COVID, I lost 8 pounds.
Dude, that's awesome.
Lot. Yeah, I was kind of pretty overweight about 5 years ago, and I chipped away.
Wow. Yeah, but that's a great steady way to lose it, man. 25 pounds over 5 years. You'll keep that off forever.
Yeah, I'll keep it off now because I've changed my habits. I kind of eat. I eat differently. I don't eat everything I like 7 days a week.
I got your plan B.
Yeah.
Your plan B is like baby boomer, like makeovers. For men.
Oh, you mean my next side hustle?
Your next side hustle, yeah, man. Tell me, most important thing your dad taught you.
Oh, there's probably the most important 2 things. My dad always said it's nice to be nice, and it was kind of it's still a running joke. I say that at home here. It's nice to be nice. And I think he got that from, I don't know if, I remember like in the 60s or something, watching some news program at night. It might've been like Walter Cronkite, or I don't know if it was Idi Amin, but it was some African leader or dictator who wasn't a good guy, but said those words. Nice. And then my dad kind of like, facetiously adapted it because he spoke in kind of a peppered, broken Hungarian English. I called it Hunglish, but because I never learned to speak Hungarian that well because of that.
But you understood what he was saying.
I understood, and I can get around speaking it, but very grammatically very incorrect, very poor. But he said it's nice to be nice, and it stuck with me since I was about 10 years old. And he taught me a real work ethic. He was like the guy who when we were little kids, he had 2 jobs. He had his cabinet business, and he also worked for McDonnell Douglas.
Oh yeah,
McDonnell Douglas Aircraft.
Yeah,
aircraft building interior. That's the neighborhood we live. where we lived in, where I grew up, where my mother still lives, was kind of a neighborhood of a lot of people who worked at McDonnell Douglas in different aspects of that company. It was a huge factory.
Yeah.
So he worked there.
Company.
So his work ethic was unbelievable. I mean, you know, he got up, put his khaki outfit on every morning. He was out the door at 7:45, at work at 8. You know, he's taught. I worked for him a lot as a kid, all the way into my late teens. You know, work ethic. You know, be on time. Oh, and he also said, so there's 3 things. So yes, if there's one thing, there's a nice to be nice. You know, his work ethic was, I won't say unparalleled, but you know, it was strong. Show up, be on time. And he always said, there's a right way to do something and a wrong way to do something. Do the right way, you know. So he taught me that.
How about your mom? Most important thing she taught you?
Well, my mom, my mom's a little more complex. My dad was simpler. You know, I won't say he was a simpleton, but he was a simpler person, you know. My mom's a little more complex. I got a lot from my mom. She had a big love of music, you know.
Oh,
so I got my love of music largely from my mom, like embracing, like having AM radio on and FM radio later when we were teenagers, listening to everyone from Little Richard, Fats Domino, Bo Diddley, you know, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis, you know.
That's
Johnny
really cool
Cash,
that she
all
came
on the radio.
That she came over here from, I guess, Central Europe,
Eastern Europe.
Eastern Europe.
Yeah,
and,
Eastern Europe. Slovakia, right next to Hungary. Yeah, she embraced the culture because she loved, as a young girl, her hero was kind of like Mickey Rooney because she watched American movies.
Yeah.
So she learned a bit of English. She was fluent in German, which is, you know, very related to English, you know, same very similar languages. So she had an ear for English, so I think it was easier for her to learn, even though she spoke with a thick accent. But she embraced the culture and music. She loved American movies, and she rapidly loved American music, kind of unbeknownst to me, but she'd play on the radio. My brother and I'd have the radio on, and she didn't turn it off and turn it to like a classical station or she just embraced it, and she would go around the house and joyfully, like, she would play air saxophone.
That's cute.
So like Coasters records.
That's
you
great.
know, the Yakety Yak, you know, it was probably King Curtis playing.
Yeah.
You know, and she was playing air saxophone. But she also liked, you know, Hungarian gypsy music and Hungarian traditional music and some Hungarian classical music. But she also liked Dean Martin and Tony Bennett, probably more than Frank Sinatra. And she liked Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass when that came out.
Sure.
And they bought Broadway show albums. So there was music embraced and played in the house. And when I think I wanted to tell you this earlier, like a big influence, kind of like, you know, in watching Ed Sullivan and, you know, the Beatles on and the Stones and the Kinks and Jerry and the Pacemakers and, you know, all that Mercy Beat explosion, you know, Wayne Dakota and the Mindbenders.
That I don't know.
Wayne, you know, there were so many bands coming on every Sunday. The Stones, of course. Yeah. There was another one, and embracing that and watching it with us. And then we were buying records and Jimi Hendrix. But around that same time, a little after, it came on pretty late at night. I was the only person I would tell friends. In 1966, I was just turning 14, I guess 13 to 14. There was a show that was very influential to me musically. And I don't know if I was playing, I think I just started playing bass, got that first bass in that first junior high school band. There was a show on called The Beat. That was a nationally syndicated show out of Dallas, Texas. Oh, it was tremendous. I mean, it was so different from who you'd see, you know, pop artists like Petula Clark or, you know, the Beatles, of course, rock, you know, the Stones on Ed Sullivan. It was an R&B blues show with a house band out of, you can go to YouTube and put in The Beat.
I saw Freddie King on there.
Freddie King was on a lot. Well, that's where I saw Freddie King.
He's
and it put me on this blues path. Yeah, well, Freddie King, like unbelievable. The first time I saw that, my eyes just went, and I started telling my friends. It was on kind of late for a 13 to 14-year-old, like maybe at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock. at night on a Friday. I think it was Friday nights or Saturday nights, and on an off channel, like not CBS, NBC, or ABC.
Like WOR or something.
Well, yeah, but it was nationally syndicated out of Dallas with this DJ, radio DJ who had a show in Nashville, Tennessee. But yeah, he had Little Milton on. He had Freddie King. I mean, oh my God, the artists that were on there. Bobby Bland, I think, was on there. God,
it's funny. I listened to all three of those artists in the last 2 weeks. It's so.
You did? Little Milton?
I swear to God. Yes. How weird is that?
Yeah. So I went on this blues. Did I write down some of the artists that were on there? Well, you can find it. It's pretty easy to find.
The Beat. Yeah, I just wrote it down. I'm going to check it out.
The Beat. Yeah, it's an incredible show. So that put me on a whole blues R&B path early on. And I don't know how I got to that from the last. Oh, that was because of my mom embracing, my mom's influence, music. She embraced the music. And my mom and dad drove me to gigs, before I had a driver's license, because I was playing little like bar mitzvah and wedding and party gigs at 14 and 15. But maybe not so much at 13, 14 and 15. I might be off by a half a year, but they would drive me, or the drummer and guitar player, they were brothers. Their mom would drive us and fit the whole band and all our gear in the back of a Pontiac Bonneville or Grand Prix. I think it was a Bonneville station wagon. And so my mom was a huge influence like that. And she loved culture too, She loved movies and art and food. She was quite a chef. I mean, she was a housewife, a balabusta. I don't know if you know that
kind of
Yiddish. That's kind of a homemaker, homemaker extraordinaire.
Okay.
Like someone who's like a really good homemaker.
Right.
So there was like home cooked dinners every night of the week. We weren't going out to eat. Yeah, so she taught me that, and she taught me to love. She was really early on. I think I learned about racial acceptance. I mean, it's not something that was taught in school.
No,
really.
Cool.
And I grew up in Los Angeles. Racially divided city, right? A lot of Latino, a lot of Black African Americans. A lot of white people. But we did have, when I was 11 years old, the Watts riots in 1963. So there was tension.
Right.
And I remember my mom saw a family whose I think they were on hard times. It was either their business had burned down. I might have altered the facts because I don't remember. But maybe she saw it on the evening news or in the local, LA Herald Examiner, which doesn't exist for years now, or the Times, about a family from Southeast LA, probably in Watts, who were on hard times financially. Well, somehow, I don't know if it was through their church or through the news program, she found them, and they came to our house, and she gave them bags of clothes and like all this stuff, like, stuff you'd give to the Goodwill or charity.
Yeah, that's a very impactful kind of thing.
It was very impactful to me. I went, oh yeah, that's like paying it forward in her way,
Well, just to recognize others, the plight of others, and have compassion about that, I think is important.
To have compassion, and the fact that they were a African American Black family, had a real impact on me. And so, I was already like indebted forever because all the music I did, or most of the music I did, came from their culture, right?
Totally.
Blues that came from African, whatever came up from Africa. You could spend all day talking about musicology.
Totally.
But it left a big impact on me. My mother's, openness and love of people of all walks of life.
That's very nice, man. That was like a whole, what was it? Etude. That was an homage to your mom. That's nice,
it's off the top of my head and brings kind of a tear to my eye because I never really thought of it.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Right now, I didn't put any thought into that. Just like, you just kind of go through life and kind of do the same. same routine, and you don't stop to think about stuff like that. So I'm glad you asked me that question.
Well, good. I'm glad I asked you as well. Favorite place you traveled?
Oh, favorite place I've traveled. Well, there's probably a handful. God, let's see. The favorite place. Well, I love Hawaii.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not my favorite place, but I always love going there. You know, like the last two times.
Awesome.
The last 3 times I think I've played in Australia or Japan with Jackson. On the way back, the band has flown back, and I've taken a separate flight. One time the whole band, we did a gig in Hawaii, and then my girlfriend flew over and met me. But another couple times we've done the same thing. I've got my own flight. They've flown to LA and I've flown to Hawaii. It's a great way to break up that long flight too, and spend a week in Hawaii. So there's something special about Hawaii. Been going there since the late 70s. I guess a small handful of times with my family, you know, my ex-wife and children.
Sure.
And my kids. So that's a special place. It means a lot. I always feel great there. But I also love certain places in Europe, you know, that I've had a great time. Italy, Spain, you know, Ireland. One of my best friends lives in Ireland. We FaceTime every week on the phone.
Oh, that's cool.
For the last 10 years.
Wow.
We've been friends. We met through Dan Layton, the bass manufacturer. He's a great bass player, and better yet, a dear friend and a great person. His name's Keith Duffy. Someone you might want to interview sometime.
Yeah.
Bass player. He played in the Coors, their whole.
Then he's probably friends with Anto
career.
Drennan.
Oh, I hear about Anto all the time.
Anto's awesome.
Oh yeah,
awesome dude.
He talks about Anto a lot.
So funny.
You know that. Oh, I ran into Anto and he said blah blah blah. You know.
That is what a small world music is, man.
Yeah. So Keith and I rap about everything. He's
wild.
One of my closest, like maybe 3 to 4 closest friends in life.
Wow.
He's the person I speak to more than anyone, even though I don't see him. You know, there's a couple friends I see on the golf course every week, and I play music with them. It's equal. There's not one that's, you know, but he and I actually FaceTime. I don't FaceTime with those other guys, only because he lives in Ohio.
Sure. Do you get to see each other once in a blue moon and hang?
Well, it's been too long. He was coming like every year or two to the NAMM show, and he always stays with us. Oh, okay. In this room right here on that couch.
That couch?
Yeah, it folds. I mean, it pulls out into a queen sleeper sofa. So, yeah, I love it when he stays. He usually stays for 4 to 5 days.
Well, hopefully, are they going to have NAMM next year? Do you think?
I don't know.
2022? Who knows?
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe. We'll
That's
see.
so funny.
I always get sick after NAMM, shaking all those hands. So.
I went once, which was last year, which I was deathly ill after that. I thought I had COVID. No, it was COVID came later, but
not much later. You could have gotten COVID.
No, I didn't get it till like October.
We call it NAMthrax.
Yeah, that's what everybody was saying. You got NAMthrax.
Yeah.
I was like, I was really sick after that, man.
There's those, you know, there's those places in Europe I've been that I've loved. I've loved going to Japan. Maybe not as top on my list, but I love going there. But there's a place that I've been going to on the central coast of California. And there's a couple small towns on the central coast of California that I love, the area, all the way from like Santa Barbara all the way up to like Monterey Bay. And there's I don't want to give them away because they're my little secret. I've already given away enough my secret little spots. Anyone wants to contact me and ask, I'll tell them.
Yeah, I'm going to contact you because I think we're going to go to Hawaii, and I was telling we might stop in LA. And
well, there's a couple places like a 3.5 hour drive outside of LA that are really sweet, like little places that are kind of unchanged since the 70s. They're pretty laid back. Maybe there's some places on Cape Cod still like that, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those old kind of, you know, they
beach towns, seaside
beach towns. Yeah, seaside towns that haven't gone all corporate yet.
Yeah.
With a Starbucks on every corner.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So there's a place, you know, I'll say it's near. I'll say it's near Morro Bay.
Don't reveal it.
Okay. Those are my favorite places. Yeah.
2 more questions. And man, I just want to thank you so much for being so cool and a lot of fun. So thanks very much.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been insightful.
Yeah, this is good.
Insightful about, learn stuff about myself, because I'm digging into stuff I don't think about much,
That's awesome.
like myself.
That makes me feel good.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? There was one question I didn't ask you about yourself. What do you like most about yourself?
Oh, what do I like most about myself? Oh, I don't know. I'm pretty easy to laugh, I'm a pretty quick laugh, I like a good laugh. So I don't know if that's being a good time, Charlie. That's not really the right expression for that. But, I like to laugh. So I like to be around people who like to laugh.
Yeah.
And look at the lighter side of things,
Yeah.
Kind of why I think Curb Your Enthusiasm is so popular.
I've never
Larry
seen that
D.
show.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
I've never seen. I don't
You
watch
might have-
almost any TV, man.
Oh, well, that's probably a good thing. I probably watch too much, but I mean, it is a very popular
Oh, it's
show.
super popular.
I think
Everybody
he's
likes
going
it.
into his 12th or 13th season pretty soon.
Yeah,
that
everybody.
he's shooting now. Yeah, because a lot of people relate to it, and he looks at the lighter side. It's like in Mad Magazine, the lighter side of.
Yeah.
Remember Dave Bird?
Totally.
Yeah,
I love that.
I came up. Mad Magazine was a huge influence on my childhood.
That was a good
in
magazine.
teen years. Yeah. So I think maybe that, see the humor in things, look at the lighter side of life. I've never thought of what I like about myself, because a lot of it I loathe.
Yeah.
Self-loathing,
a lot of
people have.
Yeah.
Try not to go to that dark side. But
All right, 2 more questions. Biggest change in your personality, Bob, over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is a natural part of aging?
Oh, so say it again. I'm sorry.
No, totally cool. Biggest change.
The first part, biggest change
in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much of that has just been a natural part of aging?
Oh, well, biggest change. I think being open to new things, even though I don't do many of them, but if somebody said, hey, you want to go parasailing off of a boat, you know what I mean? Those where you go off a parachute behind a boat, 30 years ago, I'd probably go. Now, I'm kind of afraid of heights. Maybe now if I was in Hawaii and somebody was doing it, I might do it. Kind of more fearful of landing in the water and getting eaten by a great white shark.
Whoa, that's a lot of moving parts you got going on there, man.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But maybe being open to things, but I never thought of that one, but being open to several adventures that I never tried.
That's great,
and
man.
Being open to being around people I don't know as much, getting out of my comfort zone, like making new friends because of my girlfriend Nancy, because she has a very rich social life that she had before we met 13 years ago, and being open to new friends and new social activities. And
that's really good, because sometimes some guys would have a tendency to shut that down.
Well, I have that tendency. I'm there, but I try not. I fight it. So recognizing that I have that tendency,
right?
A little self-awareness is good. Yeah. So I think being more self-aware is a big change, and being aware of my upbringing and kind of being like you asking questions and being able to tap into things about my family upbringing. I won't say I've been in therapy, but I've been to therapists over issues,
Who hasn't?
Yeah. And so, you become more self-aware by doing that. So I think that's the biggest change, because, otherwise I think a lot of my life, I just 20s and 30s, especially, probably even into my mid 40s, early mid 40s, I walk around with my head up my ass, all the way up my own house. So being self-aware is a big change. And what was the other part of the question? I'm sorry, I have no
that was it.
It
was like, has that come, has all these changes been intentional or just a part of aging? But it sounds like
I think it's part of aging. I will attribute a lot to my gal Nancy.
Yeah, man.
For being, she's very self-aware. So I'll attribute a lot to that growth and our growth together. And I'll also attribute it to aging, which is part of that. I've aged with her.
Sure.
And just, age and self-awareness. And
that's cool, man. You're going to have to play this for her and play it for your mom. Hey, Mom, I did an interview because she said such nice things about it.
Oh, yeah, my mom unfortunately won't be able to
definitely play it for your girlfriend.
dig it. Yeah, well, she was wondering, how I was going to answer it. I showed her some of the
questions. You showed her some of the questions? Yeah,
so she read it, because I told her about you, in the show, and I said, what a cool guy and what a cool show you do.
Oh, thank you, man. It's funny because when I bring these questions to my wife, I'm like, hey, why don't we answer some of these questions? She goes, no, I don't want to answer that. I don't want to hear that.
Well, getting out of your comfort zone is uncomfortable, right?
She just doesn't want it. She goes, I have to hear you talk about this all day. She
goes,
I
mean, like I said, I haven't thought about a lot of these questions you've asked. Some of them, about early career, Jesse Davis, Jim Keltner. I mean, I've talked about that and tapped into that. I won't say ad nauseum.
Oh,
I know that because I've revisited it a lot, and I know what a debt of gratitude I have to those guys. But this other stuff about family and mom and dad, I don't tap into it much, so it's insightful.
That's cool, man. And any final words of wisdom? That's it.
Any final words of wisdom? I think I already said it earlier in the.
It's nice to be nice.
No, I don't want to sound like I don't want to sound like a Hallmark card. Words of wisdom. They're so simple. Like laugh a lot. I think going back to you asked me. I think one of your questions why, do you have are you tapped into whatever you asked, like why people call you for all these?
Yeah.
I think the other thing besides musicianship and a good tone and, being affable, bringing levity. I think I've brought levity to certain recording situations, which is meaning a sense of humor without being a class clown.
Sure.
Making maybe a room that can be, it can get tense. Somebody's got back in the days, $150,000 record budget or $250,000, pressure's on. Make something great, but just kind of keeping it light and having all that other stuff in check, your playing, your sounds, your good working gear. But so, like I said, I don't want to sound like a Hallmark card, but like laugh a lot.
No, that's cool. Man, if
that's good.
Everybody had shit like that on their mind, there'd be a lot less stress in the world.
Other words of wisdom, be yourself. Don't try and be someone else, like whatever, whoever it is, like whoever the current cat is. I mean, we talked about Tim. Don't try and be Tim. Tim's already got Tim.
Tim's taken.
Tim's got Tim and Tim LaFave,
Yeah.
Who I said I'm a big fan, or any of the guys I've mentioned, Duck Dunn, rest in peace, or any of them, Keith. Like everybody's got their own little thing they do, and sometimes you can't put it into words, but they bring a little magic to every situation. So just be yourself. Don't try and be someone you're not. Laugh a lot. I don't know. Never stop having a childlike curiosity, about life. And music's a big part of that if you're a working musician. So about what makes things tick. And I'm lazy in that aspect, like I told you, I don't have a digital home studio, but I think I'm going to get one next year when I stop touring a ton. So, you asked about promoting something. I could promote being on the road with Jackson Browne.
Yeah.
I don't think they need to sell tickets, but
no, you don't need me to sell tickets for Jackson Browne.
Well, Jackson Browne opening for James Taylor. On some of the tour and a lot of Jackson
I saw
gigs.
that.
Yeah.
So I saw right now you got like mostly Central and then West Coast stuff booked.
Yeah, there's a lot of East Coast.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, there's gigs. They're not announced yet.
Oh,
but there's gigs starting like the very last couple of days of July, the whole month of August.
Okay, cool.
3 weeks of September, 2.5 weeks October, 2.5 weeks November, and about almost 2 weeks, a week and a half in December, right up to almost 10 days before Christmas or something.
Well,
and then
extensive
touring in in 2022. Just nothing's announced yet.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
But so I
hope you
could
guys come
promote
here.
that just if anybody's interested in what I do, which is not that much. I just kind of hold it together with Jackson's band. I
No,
play the bass, you know.
I have some more stuff to promote. Well, hopefully you guys will be coming down here. We'll go out, have a cigar. We'll go light on you though.
Yeah, are you in Tampa?
Yeah.
Oh, that used to be the place where you went and got in the 70s.
Cuban sandwich?
Well, you get a Cuban sandwich and you go to the place where the old Cuban women were rolling cigars.
Still there. Ybor City.
Ybor City, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of the name. You'd go there and get a cigar and, you know, 22 years old smoking a stogie, you know.
Well, when you guys come down here, I'll take you out. We'll go to Ybor City and get some coffee or an adult beverage and some cigars.
We just had Cuban food, a little place in the neighborhood.
It's good stuff, man.
Saturday night last weekend, I think, or Friday.
So
night.
good.
Yeah, it is good. So yeah, that would be great. So I think that's about it. Like pretty simple. My any words of wisdom or whatever you ask me.
It's good, man. Let me tell people where to find you. Thank you so much for everything, man. I really appreciate you. You've been so sincere and so sweet. Thank you very much for.
It's my pleasure. I learned as much as you did about myself.
Oh, good. That's
and
awesome.
How long-winded I am.
No, you're great. It's only bad if it's boring. Yeah, I write ad copy, and I learned you could write as much as you want. Just don't be boring. It's like a song, right? When is the song? How long should it be? Until you said what you got to say, but when it's boring.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by your career with multifacets of your career because you seem super organized and driven.
Oh, thanks. Thanks.
I'm semi-organized, but not very driven. So probably be good for some of that to rub off on me, but I'm okay.
I think you've done just great.
I've done just fine, but at this point I could probably use a little like booster shot of drive.
Man, I think you've done great. Let me tell people where to find you. And thank you so much again. So connect with Bob online he's on Instagram. It's Bobby Glaub on Instagram.
Yeah, Bobby
Glaub is how you spell his last name. Also, if anybody listening and I had to beat him over the head to get him to agree to let me do this. If anybody's interested in working with Bob and having him play on your record, message him on Instagram. Please be respectful of his time and just, give him a link to the music and, why you think it'd be a fit and what you're looking for. And so this way he can get back to you with an intelligent response. And again, on Instagram, it's Bobby Glaub. Also,
I will say, can I interject?
Yes, please. Of course, man.
You know what? It's stupid of me not to say Facebook.
Okay.
Even though I'm not on it as much as Instagram.
As Instagram? Okay.
But I go on it. Somebody can contact me a personal message.
Great.
What's it called? Instant Messenger on Facebook. They can reach me there. And that's under Bob.
Bob Glaub. Yeah. Okay.
Not Bobby.
So Facebook or Instagram. Also, if you're interested in taking lessons and like there's something that you're looking specifically to accomplish, or you like a technique that Bob has, or how does he achieve a certain tone, or how did he do this or that on a record, and you think he could help you, he's available. Just give him as much information as, so he can come back and see if it's a fit. Does it make sense for him to help you, And again, message him on Instagram at Bob Glaub, Instagram at Bobby Glaub, or Facebook at Bob Glaub. Also, the guy's got the best teeth of like maybe any of the 850 guests I've had on the show. So,
it's hilarious.
You do, man. I was like, I thought for sure you had veneers. I was like, God, this guy's got the best teeth ever. I'm looking those. And what else? Jack Webb, anything else?
No, that's it. I think we've gone over. If you have any other questions, feel free to call. Okay, good teeth. I'll take it. Thanks.
No, the best teeth, not good teeth. The best teeth.
Brush and floss.
There you go. Brush and floss. Well, hang on. Let me wrap this up. And thank you for everything. I appreciate it. Everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're my pleasure. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much to Bob Glaub for a lifetime of wonderful music and for just being a very cool, sincere human being and a kind person who's nice. Hit him up on Instagram at Bobby Glaub, Facebook at Bob Glaub. If you're interested in connecting with him for sessions, message him there. And if you're interested in lessons on bass. Again, hit him up on the same place. Just give him some information, what you're looking for. And most important, especially nowadays, man, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play a guitar or your bass and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Brother, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.